You're listening to Well, I Laughed, part 1 of Smoke and Mirrors. Now you see me. Why is it on dating apps that it's always the person you want to have message you is never the person that is consistently messaging you? And, I mean, I know beggars can't be choosers right now. And there's lots of people kind of in and out of these DMs right now, kind of in that fun early stage. Kind of like first 10, 15 minutes of Squid Games, you know what I mean? No. Dating me is deadly to your self-esteem. No, I'm kidding. I don't know if I actually told you this.
Or to Grant's self-esteem.
That's the answer. I don't know actually if I ever told you this or not. When I was right out of college, first 2-3 guys, I forget, first 2-3 guys that I dated, I was the last guy they dated before they found their forever person.
Oh.
How am I supposed to handle that? How am I? No, it was good. At the time, I think honestly, one of the major issues was that they were kind of let's go all the way, and I was I'm fresh in the world,
yeah.
and then they found someone that wanted that, and I love in a non-ironic way a lot of times.
Yeah.
So happy for them, but there was a moment where it was
damn.
All by myself. No, it's okay. I have a big social group that thinks I'm funny, so it all worked out. Everyone.
Are we recording?
Yeah, 100%. But this is great. I don't think you're nearly as loud as you think you are on the actual audio.
That's pretty loud.
That's going to catch
yeah.
it. That's going to catch. Casey is day zero supporter of this podcast. Mm-hmm. What's so fun is, because for so long, we had a couple episodes, hadn't published anything yet. He is truly our first listener.
That's really true.
He was listening to us in March.
Before we even listened to us.
Correct. So before I get into just anything and everything, Maia, what's going on in your world?
I had something to say and I can't remember because Casey's making a lot of noise.
You know, I think I've shared this before. When I'm trying to give instructions and another kid's talking, even if they're whispering, I have to just look at them and I go, my rat brain
cannot process this.
Because I have to think about what I'm saying and then saying it out loud. And the art of teaching will tell you that instructions isn't just hey guys, what's up? There's an actual order to the way you're supposed to kind of say things and deliver things to your class. And I can't figure that out if you're because I'm such a gossip. I want to know.
What are you whispering about?
Exactly. What's going on? Is it funny? Do you want to tell me?
Is it dramatic?
I can ask the kids to leave if that'll help.
No, there's nothing really new. I mean, I have to go into the office this week for work, which sucks. Just kidding. If you're my coworkers, I love you.
It's never the coworkers that's why you're not excited to go into work.
Yeah, it's the driving to and fro and just
wearing
generally
pants
kind of being stuck somewhere. No, hello.
You're a good man. No. I'm going to then sip on that to cool down.
Water, yeah.
Thank you.
To cool down.
No. This will be enough. Thank you. I haven't really had a proper lunch today, so.
Same. That's why I was eating my leftovers.
Have you seen Stephen Sondheim's musical Company? Or the song "Here's to the Lady Who Lunch or Brunch."
I know Company. I know Stephen Sondheim. That name of the song sounds very familiar. I don't know.
There is an incredible YouTube version. Sorry, y'all. I never know where we're gonna go when we sit down and start recording.
Neither do I.
No, this memory getting ripped out from the back rows. There's an incredible video of it on YouTube, and it's not someone in the audience, they intentionally recorded a production of Stephen Sondheim's Company. You can get a couple, but one's better than the others. I was shown it as part of a first date when I was a freshman in college. We sat down on his broken futon.
Classic.
And he showed me the musical. And while I did not continue to talk to him, I revisit the musical every now and then.
That's super fair.
If you get my time, I want something back in return.
And he got a musical recommendation.
But I think we're falling into just what fall's going to look like, yeah? Systems and routines.
Yeah. Does it look okay?
Yeah, it was last time you cleared storage on. You have enough for this. So.
Well, the last time we did it was last time we recorded, so I think it'll be okay.
I only barely know what we're talking about.
Remember last time it only recorded like the first 10 minutes?
I remember you telling me that something like that happened. Yeah.
I haven't edited that episode yet because there's a lot of mental load on trying to figure out what to do with all that blank space.
I hear that. Is that when I did my American Ferrera speech on? Can I redo it for this just to make sure we capture it on video? No, that's a no. That's fine.
No, I'm pretty sure actually it was because I think I did see it because I have gone through like the first 10 minutes, so I think it was on video. I'll let you know if it wasn't and we can redo it.
Maya made the mistake of calling me eloquent today at one point. There were strangers around. It's not her fault. But
all right. You continue whatever you are gonna say while I unplug your mic.
No, that was it. Really, that was it. We just recorded with our friends over at Sorta Kinda Funny.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic time. Sorry, that's a podcast. Sorta Kinda Funny podcast.
Not a place.
It just was really empowering to know that this dynamic isn't unique to us.
It made me really happy. Every time either of them said anything about how they run the podcast, I was like, I feel so seen. And me and Lauren weren't even really talking about it. It was like you saying something and James being like, that is exactly what happens here. And me and Lauren just kind of looking at each other like, I can't believe we both do this.
I'd be like, oh, I don't do that part of the podcast. And James would be, same. And then there'd just be...
shaking anger.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I want to say that's tough to hear, but I've heard it and I knew it. I said it. I
feel like we've also gotten that from like our friends that were like, that's how podcasts need to be. Someone has a personality and someone does all the work.
You say that you have such a great personality.
I don't know how to take compliments and you know that, so you better stop.
You are my trusted adult. You're not my only, but you're like now in the circle of trusted adult. Friends and family. Mom, you can hear the story. I don't want to call it a bad date because I don't even necessarily know if I want to call it a date. But
interaction.
I had drinks with a gentleman caller. That sounds actually so much worse than what it was.
Oh, it's pretty funny though.
And had a chance to sit down with them, and I think their soul is great. Mm-hmm. Like I don't think they're a legitimately bad person.
Yeah.
It's one of those moments, and those of you dating, I am sorry. Like 2 weeks ago, I was like, teachers, we're back at school, and now I'm like, single people unite. It was just, we were at such different stages in our life, and there was a certain element of like there was an age gap there.
Right.
And sometimes that can actually be really exciting. Sometimes it's nice to sit down and get to know a person whose world is like very different than yours. Not what was happening on Friday.
Grant was not interested in his world. It was not a universe he wished to add to the multiverse of Grant Thomas.
I am just really spoiled with so many interesting people in my life that if you want to like enter,
you gotta have something funny.
You gotta have to make the cut. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
NFL has a 55-man roster after they make the cut in the preseason. Mine's smaller.
No! Is he better than the NFL? Some would say yes.
So all that is to say, as soon as that date concluded, I like ran to Maya's.
It was 11:30 p.m. I was in my pajamas.
Was that the time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah, I was in my pajamas like, all right, like maybe I'll sit in bed. Maybe I'll edit some of our reels that I have yet to edit. Maybe I'll read a little bit. And then I get it. I like literally sit in bed, cover myself with the blankets, and I look at my phone. And it's like, bing. I'm on my way over to your house. And I was like, okay.
Because I don't even think I had told you I was going to be in your neighborhood.
No, I had no idea. You just said, I'm on my way if that's okay.
Right.
If not, that's okay, but I have a really funny story. It'll only be 10 minutes. It'll only be like 5 minutes.
We are legitimately good friends who are about to travel internationally. And we're both still like, hey, if my friendship's a burden, like I get it. And I know it's fine. Like I wouldn't want to see myself either right now. But like if you are kind of around and like that's like neutral for you.
I literally walked into Casey's office and I was like, Grant's going to stop by for a second. And he went, oh, okay. And then I came down here, unlocked the door, and sat on the couch and waited.
Curled back in, and I was like, Maya, he'd recently bought an acoustic guitar.
And then we sang that song from Barbie.
Which we keep quoting, and we can never remember
I don't know the name
the
of the
name
song,
of.
I wanna push you
around,
and I
do you know what song I always think it is, but it's not? I wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. I always think of
super fair.
Wonderwall. It's never Wonderwall.
No, super fair.
So I ran over. We had a fun little gossip sesh.
It was
and
fun.
then I was like, at a certain point in the evening, I realized my evening could continue to go this way, or I have frozen pierogies at my house. You know, the Polish dumpling.
And the way he described it was, I can be sitting on the couch regretting one of two things.
At least this way, I'll also get a chance to watch My Big Fat Greek Wedding. My favorite movie ever.
Are you gonna watch the new one?
I watched 2. I'll watch 3. I'm hooked. I'm in that universe right now.
It makes me really happy. I have an inkling Casey has not watched it.
I was on a date once that he's never seen it.
I have a feeling he hasn't.
Here's the thing.
He hasn't seen a lot of like classic like rom-coms.
That feels like the exact kind of... Maya has a super cool rooftop patio that overlooks downtown and stuff. That's the exact kind of movie
That's
you
what we're
show.
doing.
Because some people have seen it, and thus you can kind of like chat over it, but there's so many funny bits.
Yeah.
And you can always tell what's happening in the scene, regardless of if you'd seen the next, like the last scene or not. It's just, it's so good.
Oh, we're doing that.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding fam. Like, rise up. Hive, rise up. What is that?
Oh, yeah, I don't remember. My like favorite thing is like the Oppa!
Oppa!
When they're like meeting the other family. And the bun cake!
Bund cake.
It has a hole in the center.
To this day, if I were to call Teresa Thomas right now live on this podcast, and I were to say the phrase, "What do you mean he no eat no meat?" That's okay. I make lamb.
Yeah, yes! Oh my god, I need to watch that movie again.
I once said on a date, I was like, oh, and like I've really been enjoying watching some of those classic like 90s, early 2000 rom-coms.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, like what two have you, like what, not what two, but like what ones have you been watching? And I was like, 2. I've been rewatching My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and then the Julia Roberts, Cameron Diaz, My Best Friend's Wedding. And they're both so funny and so classic. And do you know what his response was?
Oh god.
Oh, so like a lot of wedding movies, huh? Ooh, okay.
That's objectively not the point. If you had said Princess Diaries 2, she wouldn't have said that.
Exactly.
She wouldn't have
Thank
said
you. I was like, oh wow, I actually had not seen that thread, but hearing you now say that back to me on this a first date. Yeah. Okay.
I would also see that as a red flag.
Not intentionally, but I did raise a red flag there. I get that 100%.
I'll bring it back down like
100%.
the flag at Casa Bonita.
I actually don't need more chips and salsa. Thank you so much. I think of the real one, I know I will have found a real one when saying those 2 movies isn't immediately like, oh, this guy's ready to like get hitched. And will instead be like, isn't Julia Roberts and Cameron Diaz so funny in that movie?
It's true.
Do you know what's actually crazy going back and rewatching those now? You forget how radically cell phones and then iPhones changed.
Yeah.
She's like this like food blogger or whatever, and she's at a restaurant in like the opening scene. This isn't a spoiler if you haven't seen it. It's just a great movie. And she's like writing something down. Because there's no like way to like food photography or anything. She's like writing down her review of a restaurant, and one of the hostesses come up to her and was like, "I'm sorry, we have a phone call for you at the front," because there's no way to like actually call her. So like the person calling her had like called her like office and was like, "Oh, she's actually at this restaurant," and then like had to call the restaurant. And it's just crazy to see that, but in a way that's like, take me back. Like, I'm so tired of having phones.
I also just never want to talk to anyone enough to make more than one phone call.
Yes.
What?
I actually like, I don't, have you ever done this thing where you're driving and you're like, it'd be nice to talk to someone right now. So you like make 2 or 3 calls, but everyone's busy living their lives, aka ignoring phone calls.
Yes.
And then when they have the social stamina to call, they call you, but now you're home.
And you're like, no.
And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, that was a moment in time.
That's not something that we're doing, like a thing. I just watched, so you know the opening sequence of Barbie?
Yes.
It's a reference to 2001: The Space Odyssey.
Yes.
When I watched it with Casey, that sequence was playing, and I like leaned over and I was like, do you get this sequence? Because like the theater was a lot more quiet than it was on opening night.
I love that you were like a film bro and you were like, do you get it?
I was like, do you understand this sequence? Because I had a feeling he didn't.
Sure.
And he was just like laughing along, and he was like, no, like this is a reference. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to watch that movie again. And so,
Pauses, Barbie. Okay, so there's this other movie you gotta see first.
yeah, exactly. But so we watched 2001: A Space Odyssey last night, and first of all, that movie is a movie. It's great.
Cool. So first question answered.
Yeah, I don't know. It's. I can understand.
Dads love that movie.
Dads love that movie. It's
Yeah.
either you love it, like, and you think it is like the epitome of modern filmmaking, or you're like, why is there so much orchestra music and no talking?
So not a Hans Zimmerman fan, huh?
Well, I
I don't think he's the person who does
don't
the
think so,
music.
but the music is like iconic
Sure.
in its own way, but it is like, it's Kubrick. And so like, it's meant to be off-putting. So at never at any point you're like, wow, I am so moved by this. The entire time it's like, okay.
A lot of anxiety in my body.
Yeah, a lot of anxiety in my body that I wish would stop. But no, this has been going on for 20 minutes now. But one of the amazing things about that movie is I always forget that it was like made in the 60s and that they got a lot of physics stuff right.
Right.
Which is like very impressive. But there's a scene where like this guy goes into a phone booth, but it's a video phone booth. And he has to like go in and like call his daughter or something like that. And I was like, you know what? It's amazing that they figured out that like centrifugal force is the reason that they need to like do the spinning thing and then
Yeah.
it'll like affect gravity and like all this stuff. But they didn't figure out that we would have mobile phones.
Exactly. That we still wouldn't be able to just on demand call anyone.
Yeah,
we
they
wanted
figured
to.
out that
Yeah.
we would want to like video chat with people. Not a single thought of like maybe they'll have it in their hand. And
Right.
that is a very funny thought to me.
So it's okay. So this is so funny that you're kind of hitting on this because I'm actively having this conversation with young people. We're in our first debate unit in my classes, and we do this really cool topic selection process. So it's like based in student voice, and like they get to decide what they want to debate. Because I'm not covering content, I'm
Yeah.
covering skill. And they chose, a lot of the classes did, to debate cell phone policy. And it's really interesting to see these people who grew up with cell phones being ubiquitous debate what cell phones are actually needed
Yeah.
for. A lot of kids are saying, well, you need cell phones for safety. And I don't know about you, but I didn't have my first cell phone until I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of I was like a free range child a little bit. Not
Yeah.
like in like the
No, yeah.
60s sense.
No, I
but
feel that.
like I told this story to one of my periods. I said, you know, you and the other boys from the neighborhood would all get on your bikes and you would bike to Shopko.
Yeah.
Before
Yes.
Target got fancy,
Yeah.
there was Shopko.
Yeah.
And everyone would go in except one who would stay outside
With
and
the
watch
bikes.
the bikes.
Yes.
And everyone would go buy Pokemon cards and you would like trade them in the parking lot. And then you would usually bike then to someone's house, like bike to the next house
Yeah.
where you'd like add them to your deck and like you'd play a game and you'd come back and you know, your parents would like have dinner ready because you just
Yeah.
kind of knew like what
When to come
time
home, yeah.
your parents needed you, and they'd be like, "How was your day?" Because they legitimately
Yes,
didn't know what was
Yes.
going on. And obviously, there's like the benefit of like growing up in a community where that was like you felt safe,
Yeah.
and we had bikes, which was a really
Yeah.
nice thing. But I was looking at them and I was like, you know, you would leave in the morning, and it's not that our parents were absent. It's not like there
It's
was
just
no
that
one
it wasn't
home.
necessary.
Mom, I swear you're a good mother. I'm not saying you abandoned us. That is
I
not
agree.
what I'm saying. But it was like, you know, all of the parents would be home and then
Yeah.
you could see us take
It's
off,
true.
you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
maybe you'd be like, hey, we're going to go to Shopko, you know, because you're about to cross a major street.
Yes.
And that's just the chance to be in a place where your parents don't immediately know where you are. A lot of young people today don't have that.
Yeah.
And I think you see that in like the way they carry themselves. Like if we were at the park and like an adult talked to us, there was an expectation for how we were supposed to talk to them. And also just kind of have like an eye out for our own safety because, you know, if something went wrong at the park, and not like kidnapping, but like Griffin jumped off the third story slide and now he's hurt on the gravel.
Yeah.
Help comes as fast as I can bike home.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah, that's super fair. Yeah, like looking back on it, I feel like every time people are like, "Oh, well, when I was a kid, like nothing really mattered and like we could do everything." And I was
Right.
like, "Did I really have that?" And then I remember like I would go and bike like down a trail
Mm-hmm.
with my like neighborhood friends. I would go and like catch crawdads.
Yes.
And I was like, that is a crazy ass experience that I don't think I really fully appreciated
time,
until
no.
like now as an
Yes.
adult, where I was like, okay, like no one really needed to know where I was
Right.
at that point because like like respectfully, I was like relatively safe.
Right. And the unspoken part about all of this was like, were there times we were doing things we weren't supposed to? Of course. That's
Absolutely.
kind of called childhood.
Yeah.
But it's like you learned how to get away with it. You learned how to hide it. Or if consequences came, you learned how to deal with the consequences.
I remember my friend's younger brother. There's like this tree in the like park area by my house, and it had been struck by lightning multiple times, and so it was all warped and stuff, which made it perfect for climbing.
Absolutely.
But it's only safe to like climb up the first couple levels, and
Right.
of course the younger brother like tried to climb up as far as he could, and he fell off one of the branches and like broke his arm, and
Learned a consequence.
he figured it out.
Yeah,
He did not go
absolutely.
back up there.
Not pro arm breaking,
No,
but pro
but
like living a little bit of life.
living a little
you
bit,
know?
yeah.
I've once sprained my ankle so bad on a hike that like I legitimately could not walk the next day. And probably maybe should have like seen medical attention. A mile and a half away from my car. You just gotta kind of live this life. And so I tell these stories to my students.
And they're like,
They look at me like a time wizard. I'm like, and then we went to school and 9/11 happened. I have like all these like living memories of
Yeah.
not only like world events that happened, but like just what life
different
was like
time.
fundamentally differently than what it was now. Like one kid
Yeah.
was like, oh yeah, and like Michael Jackson, he's even like alive. And I was like, I know Michael
Yes.
Jackson's dead because I know where I was when Michael Jackson
Yeah.
died. And they're like, where were you? And I was like, I was in like Disneyland for like this
Yeah.
like school
God.
trip thing, and like everyone kind of got the news at once kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and it spread like through the park, and that's like how I knew that Michael Jackson died. And do you know what that teed off for them?
know.
Mister, where were you when so-and-so died? Mister, do you remember when so-and-so happened? Mister, what? It was all like, what does our time wizard of a teacher remember about the past?
oh my God, that's so funny.
And so it's, I don't know, it's great to work with young people. It is also like our income, like they're 8th graders now. So next year they'll be freshmen that were born in 2010.
No,
Yeah.
no, I refuse
I
that.
know, right?
Yeah.
And that's time for you. So welcome to the podcast, I guess. I don't know.
Hated that. I remember Michael Jackson dying. I don't think I remember where I was when he died, though.
Makes you bolder, even children get older.
I think that what I really
Singing
remember
podcast.
is the people coming out shortly after Michael Jackson died saying that he had like, you know.
Which was also before, but then now you could kind of more freely
Yeah.
talk about it. Yeah.
And then I also remember, wait, no, I also remember because I don't remember like how old I was when Michael Jackson died, but I do remember that I did not know that he was not white. I think
Yeah.
until after he died, and they
Famous
started
black singer, yes.
Until they started like going through all of like the videos of him as he got famous, and I was
Right.
like, wait a minute. And then my parents had to explain to me like, oh well, he like got all these surgeries and stuff,
Right.
and like nuts.
It's crazy. The age gap between us is not huge, but sometimes it feels like it.
No, that's fair. That's super fair.
Here's the thing, not to be like my students, but I'm going to ask you this question. And then I would love to hear your story for the week. I love your stories. Do you remember Hurricane Katrina?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember because like my elementary school had a bunch of like donation stuff
Nice.
for
Okay.
them. Yeah.
So you remember like doing things for it. I hate that memories are always like, you remember this national tragedy? Okay, well, what about that national
Yes.
tragedy? Like I know, and like, I mean, already I have students that were born after Obama first got elected. And I remember watching that get called in my parents'
do
living
too.
room.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah. And that's fun. Sometimes we check in and we're like, we have crazy stories from our lives. And this has just been like Maya and I grappling with the constant march forward of time, which fits into really well into this week's theme. Smoke and mirrors.
Question mark.
Did we even announce that on the
think so.
last episode? Did we?
I haven't finished editing it, so I'm
Okay.
not sure, but I'm pretty
We'll
sure.
find out.
Yeah. The theme is smoke and mirrors, and it's my theme.
This is like episode 20 for us, and I still don't even remember like the opening speech and the closing speech for what we're about to do.
Yeah, that's fine.
I am excited about Smoke and Mirrors. I feel like we could take it a whole bunch of different directions,
Yes.
and I'm excited to hear what Maya did. Because, dear listener, when Maya picks the theme, she then gets the first story, and we go back and forth, and it's fun. So she told me the theme, and I have this like loose constellation of ideas. And then whenever she picks a story, and I think you probably do this too, I then try to pick something as far removed and dissimilar to that as possible.
Yeah. Sometimes. Most of the time, I just go through my list of like things that I know I want to talk about. I'm like, how can I make that work?
The type A and type B people coming together.
Exactly.
And I'm like, I'm always kind of out here like free forming it. And Maya's like, I am moving through a checklist.
Yeah. I like looked at my list the other day and I was like, damn, I have a lot of stories that I like want to cover. And Casey was like, well, you could like give some to Grant. And I was like, oh.
They're on my list for a reason.
Also, we have a shared list from our listeners. My list is my list.
Also, dear listener, as Maya pulls up the last details, I've loved the like individual stories we've got. I would also love to hear your theme recommendations, because the theme recommendation is even bigger stakes because it's all 3 of the episodes will have to be centered in that. And the first 2 that we did, you picked the story. I heard it and I was like, oh, so the theme's like illegal drinking, and we went from there.
Yeah.
And then the second one was like Cocaine Bear had just came out, so I was like surviving the wild or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the first 2 we just stumbled into kind
and
of.
now we're like, oh.
Right, what's the science behind this?
Okay, so I have a couple things. I'm going to announce the new Patreon subscribers, but I have a friend from college named Rachel who listens to the podcast, and I wasn't like super close with her in college or anything like that, but we've like communicated every once in a while like through college, and now she like texts me because she listens to the podcast, and she sent me this message and I haven't opened it till now because I knew if I opened it earlier I would forget.
Cute.
But she said, hi, okay, a funny note about millennials slash Gen X and their Facebook invites. Here's a quick tidbit of my life. I love how family notifies me in timely fashion of noteworthy events. For example, I just got a Facebook notification to my great Aunt Rose's funeral. I guess she died last Monday. Just found out. By Facebook.
It was Rachel?
Yeah.
Rachel, that's so real. Can I share a story related to this?
Yeah.
I'll keep it super short.
Yeah.
My first like true best friend, not like elementary school and our last names both start with T, so we're in the same class.
Yeah.
But my like true first best friend came at the end of my sophomore year of high school. I had a car at the time, but I also had a job at Super Saver, the discount grocery store.
Yes.
And I got a Facebook invite for this person who I like kind of knew for their 16th birthday party, but it was going to be like a big deal or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I just remember seeing the time that the party started and my shift was still going on for 2 more hours. So I knew I was going to show up late.
Yeah.
And that sucked. And so shift ended. There was like a t-shirt I had packed in my car. I think I changed in my car.
Right.
And I drive over and I knock on the door. And I'm like, hey, like, thank you so much for inviting me. Like, I'm here for your party. And again, we're like acquaintances. I'm going because the guest list is like 150 people. Y'all, I'm 2 hours late, but I'm also a week early.
Oh my God, no!
And she's like, oh, hi. That's not happening until next week. But I actually have a couple of friends over if you like want to hang out with us. And I'm like, okay. I've had like a conversation and a half with this person, but I like walk downstairs and do the speech and debate world. I've always been a nerd. I like kind of know the other people there. And then that night, folks, I fucking turn it on. I'm like razzling and dazzling and things like that. So fast forward a week later, I show up again at the same time for the party. And now I'm like already have all these inside jokes with a handful of people. And they're like, oh my God, we're so glad you're here. I was waiting to tell the story about what happened until you got here. And me and her name is Sam. I'm going to keep her last name a secret. But me and Sam became like instant best friends. And
I love that.
Yeah, and then here's the beautiful thing too. She's wonderful. Again, like I said earlier on this episode, I have so many just like really cool, wonderful, interesting, and inspiring people. Sam went off to UChicago to get her undergraduate, and then UT Austin for her master's degree in like creative writing and poetry. And so with all of this education and all of these credentials, a phenomenal writer, she moved to the Texas-Mexico border to become a river guide to help fund her true passion, which is to write poetry. And so every year I like show up and I give her like my offering, which is the biggest thing of Lucerne, like heavy moisturizing. I'm like, here you go, cactus friend, moisture from the civilized world. wild. And then we hike Big Bend National Park, and we
I love
canoe
that.
down the Rio Grande, and we talk about what, because obviously dating in Denver and dating on the U.S.-Mexico border.
It's very different.
A lot of, it's actually surprisingly some similarities. Men are the same everywhere, but also some differences. And then like last time that I was there, she was seeing this guy. I think they're still seeing each other, but he basically lives in one of those Earth ships. You know what I'm talking about? She's just always been so cool. And the older I get, I have like a pension. I've started my 9th year teaching.
Yeah.
I feel so provincial. And I go down there and I'm like, your life's so cool. And I think there's elements of our lives that we're both jealous of the other one
Yeah.
for. And she's just wonderful. And it all
That's so
it
cute.
all is because I showed up a week early and 2 hours late to her party.
That's so funny.
Because I didn't read the Facebook invite nearly as well as I should have. So Rachel, I'm glad that we both have been traumatized by Facebook invites. I'm sorry your grandma died.
This is great aunt.
Great out. Okay.
Okay. I'm not 100% sure where I left off with the patrons that I read last time. So we're going to start where I think I left off, which is starting with Sam. I don't have the last name. But our new patrons are Sam, Noelle M, Jillian M, Izzy K, Riley C, Caitlin M, and a different Caitlin spelled differently, E. So thank you guys so much for your support. We love you all dearly. And if you're interested in supporting us, our Patreon is While I Laughed Podcast.
We're ready to go.
Did you just check your dating app while I was reading the new patrons?
I have no idea what you're talking about. They've all heard from me already.
I was reading like a list of less than 10 names, and he said, you know what, this would be a good time to do?
And we were both ready at the same time.
See what this man messaged
I
me.
want to hold pumpkins at a pumpkin patch with someone. Okay. I'm now on the record many times with that.
Anyway. This is a story that I've wanted to cover for a while.
For those of you who are concerned and are going to message us later, we're not ending the podcast. We love each other.
You don't need to tell us to continue. I mean, we would love it if you did.
The words of affirmation are actually really crucial.
Really help.
Because we can't handle compliments, and so thus we are not nice to each other.
It's true. So we need other
love
people
it.
to be nice for us.
Has some exciting messages. I mean, if we're going to just talk about it openly, I'm excited to eventually be able to respond to them, but they need a little bit of wait time.
Oh, I love that for you. Okay. So we're going to start my story in... Also, this is going to be probably a long one.
Ooh, fun.
Sorry.
Do I get a guess at the start?
Yeah.
I love that. I like legitimately
Yes, you
love
do get
that.
to guess at the
Okay.
start. Okay. I just had to make sure that I like put in a spot. I like have to format them in a specific way to give you enough information to let you guess, but
Okay.
not. Yeah. Okay. So I did that. I was panic finishing these notes because my brain thought I could finish them in like the 3 hours I had before Grant came, and then I looked at my notes and went, oh no. And so I was literally writing notes until 5 minutes before Grant showed up.
It's my
late.
note from like last episode where
Yeah.
it was like, Gwyneth Paltrow ate bread, circle back later. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it didn't happen.
The last couple things I need to talk about. The last couple things I need to talk about, I know for a fact did not make it into note format, just got copy pasted directly from the source because I was like, we'll remember it.
I got today's articles from the Denver Post and the New York Times. Yeah, 100%.
Yes. Okay. So we're starting the story. We're in the United States.
Okay.
1920s.
Oh, okay.
Yep. End of World War One.
The Murder Trust, Michael Malloy. How did I get it right?
we're covering
Good.
that story
Okay,
again.
good. Reel back. Third time.
Third time's the charm. I'll get it all this time. Okay. So we're after World War One, and spiritualism is sweeping America
Okay.
and Europe, but that's not what
Can
we're
you
talking
do
about.
that in a transatlantic accent?
Spiritualism is sweeping America.
Yes! I didn't think she was going to do it. I was in the back of my mind planning the backup. So much better than what I was going to run. Good.
Okay, so this is actually the second big wave of spiritualism to sweep America. The first wave came after the Civil War. Mm-hmm. Do you know why spiritualism is sweeping the nation after World War One and
Because of
the
the
Civil War?
horrors of those wars. Was
Yeah,
like, I
crazy.
think I actually need to kind of find God right now.
So specifically, spiritualism can be paired often with like Christianity and other religions, but it's a religious movement based on the belief that you can interact with the dead.
I love that.
Yes, the living can interact with the dead. And so it became a big thing after World War I and the Civil War because a lot of people had friends and family that died in those wars.
Right.
And so now they're thinking, like, I would love to talk to them one last time.
Right.
And so it became a big thing after those wars. Many people would attend seances hosted by mediums because that's the way that you contact the dead. Mediums are people who can feel as if the like veil between our world and their world is thinner.
They're the bridge.
Yeah, they're the bridge. Spirits can contact the living through them, et cetera, et cetera. They're very similar to a psychic, but not the same.
Okay.
I learned in my research. Apparently, it's like rectangles and squares. It's like every medium is a psychic. Not every psychic is a medium. And I didn't get too far into it. But
Not all bullies are gay. All gays are bullies.
yeah.
I'm going to put that on a shirt.
that feels fair.
Feels right.
Yep. Okay. So now we've covered that kind of background knowledge. Specifically, we're going to go to July 1st, 1925 in
Okay.
New York City. New York City.
Thank you. Yes. I was like, sorry, it. 'Cause that's everything you say is now how. Especially
New
'cause
York City.
You have a little microphone in front of you too, so I just keep hearing it in like a transatlantic.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so we are at the home of a one Mrs. Cecile M. Cook.
Okay.
Miss Cecile Cook is hosting a seance in her home. She had gained some local notoriety as a medium.
Okay.
So you know how some mediums use specific methods to like talk to the dead and let the dead talk through them?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I would assume. I don't.
Okay.
I know actually shockingly little about mediums
Okay.
for a person as whimsical as I am.
So we're gonna get we're gonna get into it.
Okay.
So have you heard of automatic writing?
No.
So-
is it when like a person takes over for you and you're like, give her more money?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. When a spirit is talking through a medium, they'll like write on the paper. And so it's not the writer writing, it's the spirit writing through them.
So I feel like we're gonna at least here very shortly learn a lot about mediums. So I have to actually ask you a question.
Okay.
Did you ever, as a kid, watch that like ABC show Medium starring Patricia Arquette?
I don't think so because I was raised really religious and I don't think I was allowed to watch that kind of. That is something that I would watch now.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It was actually a really good show.
Yeah.
And it's a show that you've seen 100 times, but this has Patricia Arquette in it. And she's a medium, and she can see just enough of a crime to make her interesting, but not
Right.
enough for her to solve it in
useful.
5
Yeah.
minutes. And so she's like part of the police department, but not. And then also
Sounds like psych.
her like marriage is struggling.
Oh.
Because it's an ABC family show, so it's like outside of work, marriage is also work, you know? I mean, I wouldn't know, but it's just,
fair.
and I remember my parents loved watching it, and same, like oftentimes ABC Family I think is like a little corny.
Yeah.
I remember at a time being like wrapped. I'm like, this is storytelling at its finest.
Fast forward, we have Grant today.
Unmarried, whatever else you want to call
Loves
this.
drama.
The amount of silence after unmarried, be like, well, gosh, how do I conceptualize this?
He's 30 and he's becoming a burden to his family. He has no prospects and no money.
I'm 29 years old. The BBC version is better.
It's true.
Every time we do a guest recording, I'm always afraid, like, well, there went all the magic. Like, this episode's about to be so plain. Nope.
Grant has a lot to say.
I just honestly love this so much. Thank you for being here. You had things to say.
Yes. So there are a lot of ways that a medium can communicate with the living from the dead. One of them is automatic writing. There are others that like rapping, tapping, all that kind of jazz. This one I had never heard about. Miss Cecile Cook is a trumpet medium.
I can't say anything else because I just went on like a 4-minute tear, so you gotta say more words.
Okay, so she opens the seance. We're in her home. She opens.
Brr, 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 brr. What the fuck do you mean she opens the seance?
No, she opens a seance, introducing people into her home. And
Hear ye, hear ye. Are there any spirits amongst us? Sorry.
So she says, through the power given to me by the Lord, I am able to converse with dead spirits who manifest themselves through these trumpets. And she motions to 2 trumpets on the small table.
I'm here for everything you're saying.
The lights turn off, seance begins.
I'm sorry, am I at a medium or just like an AJR concert right now?
It's true, they do have trumpets and I love them. And so she begins the seance, the lights are off. Those who come to the seances are looking to get answers to any of life's questions.
Oh, not
From
just looking
the
for
spirits.
this sick beat.
Jesus Christ. Okay. And so Cecile Cook opens it up to the members of the seance, saying, like, do you have any questions? One of the participants is an older woman. She asks, I've had a problem with my throat. What should I do? Because obviously when you're at one of these seances, you want to be vague because you don't want to give the medium too much, right?
Because gotta prove that her trumpets know the truth.
Exactly. Exactly. And so a spirit answers, ironically not through a trumpet, I don't think, why you have tuberculosis. Okay.
Oh, that's like super contagious.
No!
In this room full of wind instruments? Okay, continue.
And then unprompted, a second spirit voice whispers, Dad, you have had a very, very hard time, but it is all over, and I will take care of you and brighten up everything for you and make things comfortable. A crippled old man who's at the seance recognizes the voice, sits up, and said, Is that Alfred, my son?
They're speaking through the trumpets?
I think they're just speaking at this point.
So she's like, welcome, these are my trumpets, let's hold hands. And then just like, you hear voices in the room?
And I think at some point they do play the trumpet. I'm not sure how the trumpet plays in. I'm not gonna. Maybe she is speaking through the trumpet.
Do I need to detach because I am laser focused on these
I am
trumpets
too.
right now.
And I did a lot of Googling. Could not figure that one out.
I love it when we do research stuff like this, and you're like, what was obvious in the 1920s that is baffling 100 years later?
I don't really know how the trumpets played in, but we'll get there in a second.
Okay, so either she's voicing it or Crystal Ball.
Or there's a voice in the corner or
okay.
something. So a crippled old man recognizes the voice. Is that Alfred, my son? Alfred begins to answer through the medium's trumpet. I don't know what that means. The old... Yes, it is.
I know actually a shocking number of trumpet songs, turns out.
Okay. So the Alfred begins to answer through the trumpet. The old man jumps up from his chair, which is strange because he's crippled.
Right.
Shines a flashlight at the medium.
I don't know they had those in the 1920s.
Yeah, neither did I. At the medium who had the trumpet to her lips.
Okay.
Obviously, that's not what this is supposed to be. The spirits are supposed to be talking through the trumpet, not the medium. So he goes, you have the trumpet in your mouth. I thought the spirits were speaking. Mrs. Cook throws the trumpet, falls to the floor. Someone cries, you killed the medium. Miss Cook cries, I'm killed. I'm killed. One of Miss Cook's friends who is in the seance, theoretically there to help her, jumps up to try and grab the old man. The old man
You're a fake. I'm dead. You killed her.
The old man.
I pull the same shit in my classroom. I'll go, hey,
panics.
That's a really great answer. I'm going to call on you in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Who has the answer?
So, I'm killed. One of Miss Cook's friends who's there to help the seance jumps up to try and grab the old man. The old man throws down his cane, rips off his white wig, removes his glasses, and proclaims the medium a fraud and reveals his true identity. A detective and a policewoman also stand up from the table and arrest Mrs. Cook for obtaining money under false pretenses. Do you know who this man is?
They did a sting operation to prove she wasn't real? Okay, is it J. Edgar Hoover?
No.
Okay, give me one more guess. It's not like Charles Lindbergh or something, right? Who is it?
He says, and I quote, I am Houdini and you're a fraud.
What a reveal. We are 35 minutes into this episode and we have finally, what a reveal. Oh my God, is this episode about Houdini? Okay, I really do gotta let trumpets go, but that's nuts. Oh my, I'm like body excited right now.
This episode has so many fun facts about Houdini. And I tell them all the time now because since I started researching this story.
Apparently you and I have not been around each other that much recently. As soon as I realized it was Houdini, I was like, actually, I do kind of got some outstanding questions about that guy. That like a thing I've wrestled with in the car. But now that I know I'm going to have that opportunity, let's get into it.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I also just love the like the RuPaul's Drag Race costume reveal. You are a fraud. I'm killed. I've been killed.
I'm dead. You can't arrest me if I'm dead.
The trumpets are on loan.
Oh my god.
Okay. Is he okay? I know you're about to tell us everything, but just to help clarify, in that story you just shared, is Houdini a police officer?
Nope.
Or just an angry magician?
Yes.
Okay.
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So but then he has police people with him.
Because
Okay.
it is technically illegal to get money from people under false pretenses.
So the police are like, well, we can't pull off such a difficult acting job, but we can call it a professional. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so this story is divided into 2 sections. So I'm going to need you to forget about the spiritualists, and I know that's going to be hard for
I
a
just
while.
wish I could be a fly in the room when he throws the flashlight on her face, and she's like, ooh. Right there.
It's like Ratatouille. In the kitchen, he's like, his Bigfoot.
Because a human
forest.
response is just to freeze there for a second. Oh shit, what's the plan now? This is back to our cheese rice cake thing. Where it's every human has had this experience and no one is talking about that's what unites us.
Yes. Okay. So, we're going to talk about the life and times of Harry Houdini, famous magician and escape artist of the United States. So, Harry Houdini was born on March 24th, 1874 as, oh gosh, I was meant to look this up. I think it's Eric Wise.
Okay.
It's spelled very strange. It's
Can I
spelled
ask how it's spelled?
EHRICH.
EH.
RICH.
Eric. Yeah, that sounds
Eric,
right.
yeah. And then Wise is WEISZ.
WEISZ. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So he was born in Budapest.
Just there's a lot of Czech names in Nebraska, you know?
Yeah,
So I know how to say
okay,
Wadaczewski, for example. It's the name of one of my actual friends.
I have one, oh gosh, I can't remember her last name. Well, whatever. Anyway, when they moved to the United States, Wise as WEISZ was changed to Weiss WEISS by immigration officials. So
WV.
WEISS.
Oh, E is so much more regular. Okay.
Yes. By immigration officials. His nickname was Harry in his childhood, and this eventually transformed to Harry.
Okay.
So that's how we get Harry. His family immigrated from Hungary to the U.S. in 1876, and they first lived in Appleton, Wisconsin. They got there,
fun.
yeah, because Harry's dad was a rabbi.
Do you
Sorry,
know
that was so hard.
who actually has a huge connection to Appleton, Wisconsin?
Oh, gosh, no.
Friend of the pod, Danny.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Has, I think, dated or at least had dinner with every gay person who has ever lived in Appleton, Wisconsin, to the point where it is a running gag in our friends.
Danny.
We love you.
We love you dearly.
Because you're still a listener. I feel like we haven't really trashed Danny recently like
Enough.
we did in the first couple episodes.
Yeah.
If you're
We'll
a
get
gay
there.
person in Appleton, Wisconsin, and you don't know my friend Danny,
You can
I
hit
have a
him up.
recommendation
Yeah.
for you.
He'd probably love to know you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Slide into our DMs. We can connect you.
So at first they lived in Appleton, Wisconsin, and then they settled in New York City at some point. I think when he was around age 8. So he was forced to help make ends meet because their family was very poor immigrating to the U.S., but he did so on his own terms, and he loved performing. So he became a trapeze performer at the age of 9. He debuted in a neighborhood circus as Eric, the Prince of the Air. And one of
That's
his...
a cool name. That's like a
Right?
Game of Thrones name.
Right.
Okay.
The Prince of the Air. Okay.
Okay.
One of his other early jobs was as an apprentice locksmith. And so he was fascinated by all locks, and he carefully studied and memorized how each one worked.
Well, what really useful information that internship probably turned out to be. First intern in the history of ever to learn anything from their internship.
Yep.
Can I use this as a second to talk about internships? Yeah. How many pages do we have in front of us still? Oh, okay. I'm gonna keep this story pithy. I interned in Washington, D.C. when I was a freshman in college, like the summer after my freshman year. And that was cool. And I worked for my state's U.S. Senator at the time, one of the last Democrats to represent the state. I'll keep it anonymous, but literally a single Google search will figure it out. And my job as an intern was to give constituents tours of the Capitol. Because you can go through the Capitol to get tours of the Capitol, or you can go through your local senator's office and you'll get a much more personalized experience. And I didn't learn anything in that internship, but what I would do is I would bring them in front of my Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's office, and then I would pull the crowd like right outside the office what reptile Senator McConnell looked like. And I was always trying to cue up Turtle. You know, it's like a private tour essentially, so you kind of try to jazz it up a little bit, go off script, and for whatever reason 19-year-old me was like, this is a perfect chance. But also like, Mitch McConnell's like the last Horcrux of some awful disease, and his damage to American democracy, I'm completely fine with the mean things I said outside of Mitch McConnell's awful. It's just also crazy I was allowed to say them. Love that internship.
See that he froze again?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so
yes.
I was working, and I often will just have the news on in the background while I'm working, just for some background noise. And the day after he froze, for like the second time in a month, it's now like 3 times in the last like 6 months that he's frozen. Oh, you mean the times
where he's clearly shown signs of a stroke?
Yes, exactly. But the way that CNN played it was just video after video after video. So it was like 3 straight minutes of Mitch McConnell not saying anything. And every time I would look up thinking that maybe like the TV was like, are you still watching? And no, it was just Mitch McConnell staring into blank air. And I was like, why?
I can't even scratch the surface of what I want to about this whole conversation. I'm like, what is it like to cheer for the downfall of an evil person? And like, should we have anything about health and human and things like that? And my official stance is that when I was 19 years old, I was standing outside his office. I was like, and this motherfucker looks like a turtle. Anyways, here's the rotunda.
I love that for you.
Resist.
Yeah, Grant's here now. Yeah.
And I don't work in politics anymore, so no damage to the career.
So I think earlier I said that they emigrated to the U.S. in 1876, and I think that's actually the year that they emigrated to New York.
Oh, okay.
So I think I got that back flipped. I'm not sure which year they emigrated to the U.S. Anyway, in the late 1880s, he performed in vaudeville with little success. Do you know what vaudeville is?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you want to tell the people?
Vaudeville is...
Because I didn't know.
It is professional little bits.
Yes.
If you ever thought of like a person playing the piano as a second person's hand gets slammed by the piano, that's vaudeville. That's what makes it hip hop.
Yeah.
Such a deep cut reference. No, but here's actually something that's interesting about vaudeville. Someone has said TikTok today is modern vaudeville because it's a series of quick little acts happening in front of you where the audience gets to decide how long the act goes on for. Because if the audience had like a negative reaction to a vaudeville act, you could immediately change it. Yeah. It was like improv but scripted, and you had like main characters, and it was a really interesting style of like traveling performance. I've lost it in the sauce.
Are you
again.
saying
I've gotten like all nerdy
Bonita is a vaudeville?
There's a villain they employ, and it's the gorilla.
Okay, so...
Hey, do you know who else did a couple of little bits?
Jesus.
Jesus is back.
Oh my God. We're never going to get through these notes.
No, I know. I'm like, hope you can skip some of this stuff. I'm having too much fun.
So yes, vaudeville is described as a farce. It's a funny play about ridiculous situations and events, often with music.
Right.
Light entertainment popular in the U.S. from the mid-1890s through the 1930s consisted of 10 to 15 individual unrelated acts, magicians, acrobats, comedians, trained animals, jugglers, singers, and dancers.
Beautiful job. Good job.
Thank you.
Welcome.
1891. Eric rediscovered his love for magic and teamed up with Jacob Hyman in an act called, quote...
Not Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt? Sorry. There's so much to that name.
Poor Jacob Hyman.
Not even touching on the other part. You gotta go.
And they named their act, quote, the Brothers Houdini. The name Houdini was taken from a French magician named Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin. 1892, Eric's father dies, and 18-year-old, what would be Harry Houdini, takes his act on the road. The Brothers Houdini did typical stage magic, card tricks, sleight of hand, and they would do this anywhere that would take them. They were desperate. They would do it at small museums, theaters in upstate New York, at what they called dime museums all over the Midwest, upstate New York, anywhere. 1894, so 2 years later, Harry Houdini's younger brother, Ferenc Desco, whose nickname was Dash, replaced Jacob in the Brothers Houdini for a short time until Harry meets Wilhelmina Rahner. In the same year, he marries her. She serves as his... What just fell?
Don't know. A hair clip.
Okay, perfect. So ominous. I'm not okay with
It
that.
was so quiet. Should we talk about like ghosts and stuff?
Yeah, yep, nope. Okay, so he meets Wilhelmina Rahner. He marries her, and she serves as a stage assistant under the stage name Beatrice Bess Houdini. So her nickname was Bess.
So he partners with a couple people. He meets a woman in the biz.
And
she kind of joins the show too. Yep. But right now we're at like low level success. We're just trying to pay bills, kind of like whatever we can do. Okay.
Yeah, so Harry's brother Dash is replaced by Bess Houdini.
Okay.
So he goes off and does his own thing. With Bess and Harry, they changed the name of the act from the Brothers Houdini to just the Houdinis. While performing as the Houdinis, they gained...
I don't know if that's what was limiting their success, but okay.
I don't know.
Rebrand.
We'll try again. While performing as the Houdinis, they gained some notice with a trunk escape they called the Metamorphosis. The basis...
Metamorphizes? Okay, good.
Yes.
Just
Just keep saying S's until... You know how they say, like, port with your heart? Yeah. Okay. Heart's content. The basis of this trick was not originally Houdini's. It had been done before by other illusionists, but Houdini's version is the one that became sensationalized. So the trick. Houdini's hands are tied behind his back. He's placed in a sack, which is like literally his whole body tied over the top of his head.
Okay.
That sack is like tied shut. And then he, in the sack, is placed into a box, which is then locked and strapped closed.
Okay.
The box is then placed in a cabinet that has like a curtain over the front.
Okay.
Like typical magicians that go in and they draw a curtain.
So they're like, we have him all locked up and stowed away, but now you can't see him.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So they draw the curtain. Bessie steps into the cabinet and draws the curtain. She claps 3 times. On the third clap, Houdini opens the curtain. Bessie is gone. But
she's in the box.
Yes,
okay.
but he's free of all restraints. So she is now inside the sack, inside the box. All of the locks and straps are in the same place as they were. Her hands are bound behind her back, and the sack is tied above her head.
Listen, not to be like a 1920s patron, but like how?
The secret!
Okay.
We're going to talk about it.
Is there a second chest?
No.
Okay.
So the secret, Houdini, the first part of the secret is just that Houdini was genuinely really great at escaping.
Okay.
So the secret, Houdini was a master of knots. So by the time the sack is over his head, and being tied, he is already out. His hands are already out of the knot that is binding them behind his back. And the sack had some holes in it such that the rope that's like tying the sack above his head has to loop inside and then outside. So he's able to pull on the inside part of that string to loosen it just enough to get himself out of the sack.
Bag. Okay.
Yes. After being
he's still in a chest now, right?
Yes. So,
although I guess he's unhandcuffed by the time they're putting him in the chest, right? Okay.
So after being placed inside the box, he would wiggle out of the sack as Bessie is strapping and locking it. The box had a secret back opening so that once Bessie draws the curtain closed, he opens the back panel without disturbing any of the locks or straps. And actually, Bessie is not the one clapping, it's Houdini. So Houdini would clap once, Bessie would get inside the box through the rear panel, the panel would close, and then he would clap again, and then by the third clap, Bessie would have managed to get back into the sack, slip the rope around her wrists, and have the sack tied over her head. This trick was so well practiced that Houdini could be out and Bessie would be in just 3 seconds.
Jesus Christ.
Isn't that insane?
It's actually like really impressive.
Right?
Like not... That's actually really cool.
Right?
Okay.
That's so fast. Okay. So this is...
I think we all have that perception of like entertainment 100 years ago where it's like, sure, if you've never seen like a person of color or had lo mein noodles, like anything will impress you, you know? If you've ever had a crispy crab rangoon, I get being blown away by anything. But 3 seconds...
3 seconds?
It's actually a really... like the curtain like closes, clap, clap, opens.
Done. That's crazy.
That is really cool. Also,
right?
I don't know why I assumed Houdini is standing still as everything's happening. Because of course not.
Actually, absolutely. So this is the trick that drove Houdini to develop more escape tricks because he decided the crowd had been more mesmerized by the suspense of an escape or unusual trick than by like cards or sleight of hand tricks. And so that's what kind of causes him. I don't know that he abandoned like normal sleight of hand magic or stage magic, but this is what caused him to really go into, let's put myself in a situation that might kill me and then see if it doesn't.
Here's the thing, I actually can really relate to this because after our little NDA video blew up, which is why a lot of you are here, welcome. We're thrilled you are. But after the NDA video blew up, I looked at Maya and I was like, I don't know if I can replicate that. And you were so kind. You were like, well, don't. Just like be you. And I was like, okay. I don't even know how I feel about that either, but that's fine.
See, sometimes being the less funny one is a lot less stressful.
It's a lot less prior trauma.
That's also true.
Unless you're just like, I have found what works, and now I have to continue to serve that up. And the tough thing is, truly and honestly, I don't even think that is our funniest video. I don't think that's controversial to say anymore.
I think people just fought in the comments mostly on that video.
Yeah, and that's what keeps
really
driving stuff, which is funny too. But it's like, I feel like one of those like old-timey singers who was like, that's not even my best song. That's not even my best. Like, there's so much funnier stuff if you explore what we have published than that.
But people love the vaudeville.
I know.
And
okay. Solid transition.
But also people do love just like scrolling through all of it
what?
vaudeville TikToks.
Right, we're still talking about something. Okay. Check out our work.
We are vaudeville artists.
I want to just chew on this orange rind for a second.
Okay, cool. Spring. I feel like a dog. You're like a dog that's like, just
really
eat
good.
that. Okay. Spring. Jesus Christ.
Go.
Spring of 1899 is when they caught their big break. Martin Beck is a rising tycoon.
Good. Roller coaster or zoo?
Vaudeville.
I love those games as a kid.
So rising tycoon in vaudeville theater, and he saw their performance in St. Paul, Minnesota. He was particularly interested in a handcuff escape that Houdini that Houdini had done. So Beck challenged Houdini with his own pair of handcuffs after the show because he had figured that Houdini was like using a fake stage pair of handcuffs. Houdini has easily escaped this new pair of handcuffs.
Hot again. Yes.
Exactly. Shortly after this, Beck wired Houdini and offered to hire Houdini's act to open a show in Omaha on March 26th. For $60.
Go Nebraska. Lincoln's better.
Okay. Houdini later wrote, quote, "This wire changed my whole life's journey."
Aww.
Yeah. Beginning in the 1900s, Houdini began gaining a reputation for his escape stunts. Beck had the Houdinis playing in leading vaudeville houses from the Midwest to California, and they were also a hit on another East Coast circuit. So it sounds like his tycoon was the West.
I was like, anything west of the Missouri or Atlantic City, Jersey. Those are Houdini's
That's where
circuits.
he is. Everything else is corn.
The West is beautiful. Lucky Houdini.
Yes, true. So he would escape everything from shackles, ropes, handcuffs, and various locked containers. He would do public stunts like jail escapes to get people to come to the show as like public acts.
Nice.
Houdini.
I hope he would do the crime to get jailed. I hope there were jurisdictions he couldn't revisit.
So
Is that our next
I have no
promotional
idea.
tip? Grant and Maia commit arson. Come to our Salt Lake City show.
Houdini got nicknamed, quote, the celebrated police baffler
Okay.
and the king of handcuffs. By this point, Houdini was a big star of vaudeville.
Stocks are booming on Wall Street as Houdini escapes again.
Houdini escapes again.
The transatlantic accent is so funny that to those of you in their car alone right now, just pause us and do a little transatlantic accent.
You will absolutely end up with a smile on your face.
If you aren't giggling, like, I don't think you've really committed.
Just say the celebrated police baffler and the king of handcuffs.
The celebrated police baffler in handcuffs. And that feels a little bit like baseball pitcher announcer.
Yeah.
This is also how I coach my speech and debate students, by the way. I'm like, listen, if you just go past cool and enter funny, this gets a lot better.
It does. You could have a podcast.
I'm a world-renowned teacher. Nominate me for an award. While
Celebrated police baffler.
Celebrated teacher, Grant Thomas. A lot of hard sounds there.
Okay, so Houdini arranged his own tour of Europe and would spend the next 5 years there. He was
Us
like,
on our first tour. We coordinated all of this, and it's wherever we have friends that will host us.
you got a couch? We'll stay.
Thank you, Reno, and the 8 people who didn't know this was happening tonight.
Hey. Okay, he would spend the next 5 years there. He would also stage public exhibitions and take challenges from spectators. There was a challenge from the London Mirror, which was a set of handcuffs they commissioned specifically to be difficult to escape, and they commissioned them for Houdini.
Okay.
It took Houdini more than an hour and several theatrical flourishes, but he emerged free of the, quote, mirror cuffs. It also takes me an hour to get out of most tight clothing.
And I always have a theatrical flourish.
Yes, exactly. In Germany, he ran up against the Kaiser's public police force.
Oh.
When a Cologne policeman accused him of fraud, Houdini accused him of slander.
Nice.
He had to reveal some of his tricks in court to prove that he was not a fraudster, but he...
That is the definition of, I asked you first. Well, I asked you second. Okay.
And you suck. He won, and the publicity due to this earned him the nickname of König der Handlschalen, aka King of Handcuffs.
We're about to be
German.
in Germany. We need to be better at this kind of stuff.
Well, you say that then.
Oh, I know. I have no idea.
We are about to be in Germany.
König der Handschellen. See, the thing that I
missed
know...
several syllables.
Well, you were blocking it with your finger.
Okay, whatever you say.
I had grandparents who spoke German, and my 2 oldest aunts also spoke German before they learned English, and then it all died away, and now I know 1 bad word. I do plan on doing a little bit of Duolingo.
I did some Duolingo.
Okay,
German,
cool.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we're both like, Guten Morgen.
We're both like, Warte bitte.
And I'm like, Donde está Oktoberfest? I'm actually like fairly proficient in Spanish. Not sure how much that's going to help us in Bavaria.
Probably not a lot.
We can speak it openly now. By the time this is published, we get back.
That's true.
We're going to be there in like 2 weeks.
Oh, God,
Literally,
we need
not
to
even
book
figuratively.
things. I need to book her.
You can't tell because this is a podcast, but Maya got a lot more stressed.
So I need to book our hotel for London.
I want to go to a show on the West End and then go to the bars on the West End.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, cool.
Excellent. Houdini returned to America in 1905 with enough money to buy a small farm in Connecticut and a brownstone in New York, largely for his mother, who was reportedly the love of his life. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like he just had a very close relationship, especially after his dad died, I think.
Teresa, there's no brownstone in New York in your future, but I call every Sunday.
That's
oh,
true.
Shit, I did not call today. Labor Day threw me off a little bit.
Call her tomorrow.
Love you. You can hear me on Monday.
Jesus. Teresa, I'm sorry on Grant's behalf.
On behalf of
I would
Grant.
be a better daughter. Okay. So this brownstone in New York would largely serve as his primary residence as well as his mother's.
That's where he registered to vote and got his mail. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I have a picture for you. This is him and his mother.
Oh, he like really... Yes, that is a Hungarian immigrant mother if I have ever seen a single one. And it's not anything to do with anything other than like the hat and the way she's dressed, but he does seem to truly, legitimately love and appreciate his mom.
All reports say that he was like...
YouTube, it's right here.
Yeah, so we'll post it on the Instagram. Any pictures that I mention will be posted on the Instagram. Okay.
How many pages do you have?
A lot of them are like really quick things, like
Okay,
the,
I've seen
the
the
secret.
number up here,
I know.
and I'm like, oh.
Oh, there's a lot, but a lot of it is like what I was just because we just went through like 3 pages.
Oh, fun. Okay,
Yeah, so
cool.
a lot of it is just like quick stuff to get through.
I'm here for all the detail.
Yeah.
It just might have to be 2 stories.
That's
for
fine.
2 episodes.
Okay. 1908. Houdini introduces his famous milk can escape. He calls this, quote, the best escape I have ever invented, and he would also advertise it by saying, failure means drowning death.
Oh, so you want to make sure you're shooting 100% of the time.
Okay, so there's a milk can. It stands about 1 meter tall, 3 feet tall if you're dumb and American like us. And it would be filled to the brim with water by volunteers from the audience. He would...
Thank God it's not milk.
Oh God, yeah. He would then get into the milk can and it would be he would like crouch down and it would be sealed over his head. By the time the milk can was typically fully sealed, Houdini was already underwater for about a minute.
Oh.
And so before he would do these
How long
acts...
does it take to seal a milk can?
Because it had like straps and stuff to like make sure it was... Yeah. Before this trick began, he would like ask the audience to try holding their breath for as long as they could, and typically the longest anyone in the audience could do was a minute. And so by the time the milk can is sealed and the trick begins, he's already at a minute. After the milk can is locked, a screen was erected kind of around the can, and a minute or 2 later, Houdini would emerge and the locks of the milk can would still be in place. The secret here is that the collar of the milk can, so if you can't imagine what a milk can looks like, it's like kind of a cylinder, and then it kind of tapers in a little bit, and then there's like a top to it.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like a kind of a Coke bottle, but like metal. So the collar of the can is like where the top of the cylinder ends, and it begins to taper in.
Right.
So the collar of the milk can is not actually riveted. But the way that it was like put in, it's like kind of tapered in such a way and greased in such a way that even when Houdini asked spectators to come and like inspect the can and make sure there's no foul play, they wouldn't be able to remove it or tell that it wasn't riveted. But once Houdini's inside, he can pull at it enough to get it to come up.
Like he can pull it down and then it causes
he can pull like in. Okay. I think.
And that like fucks up the suction and then
he can get out. So he could push the collar up and get out without disturbing any of the locks on top, and then you would put it back on.
How much space is there between the like cylinder and the locks? There can't be that much room to get out.
Here, there's a picture of it somewhere.
I'm like, even if you can like not disturb any of the locks, it can't be that much room to like wiggle through.
No, it's not. But he was also not like a massive guy. Man. He was Short king. Milk can.
I'm officially at 4 hours of being in Maia's place. My eyes have started to itch.
That makes sense.
And the combination of that and my Allegra, no free advertising, shortening. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She a hefty thing. All right.
It's like big. It's like about half the height of Houdini.
I think I'm now realizing I've never actually seen a milk canister. I've only seen cartoons of milk canisters.
They're pretty big. Yeah. So he has enough room to do that. Oh gosh, where was I? Yes. So he was able to get up and out without disturbing any of the locks, and then he would put the top back in, and then
like water's pouring out and stuff as they're doing all this,
probably.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. Also, around this time, he staged a series of manacled bridge jumps, also to draw publicity to his like stage performances.
Like where he's jumping off a bridge?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, one bridge to the next. Okay, that's not suicidal. Yeah. He's just jumping off bridges.
Manacled.
Okay.
So he would jump from bridges while handcuffed at first.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. And waited. And then he would, after he like kind of mastered that, I guess, he also...
After he got bored with it.
He also added a box that he would get locked into.
So he'd get locked into handcuffs and then locked into a box. And then that box would get thrown over a bridge and be like, surprise!
And then he would appear on the bank. after like 150 seconds, I think it was. So he was handcuffed and put into
That's 3 minutes.
Yep. He was handcuffed and put into a wooden crate, which was then nailed and chained shut. And the crate was then thrown over the edge of whatever bridge he was on. The first time he did this was a barge on New York's East River.
Oh.
150 seconds later, he would emerge a short distance away. Scientific American declared it, quote, one of the most remarkable tricks ever performed.
Oh.
The secret here is that, there was never any tricks to any of his handcuff escapes. He just genuinely knew how to get out of handcuffs. And
is it that easy? Is it like that bad of a technology?
I think he's studied it for so long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He wrote a book, I think, on like how to get out of handcuffs.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So he would be out of the handcuffs by the time the box was nailed shut.
Nice.
Yeah. One of the sides.
So he gives himself enough stunts with his wait time in between things.
Yeah, kind of. It seems like. One of the sides of the box was made up of 4 like boards, and they all had fake nail heads in them to make it look like they were nailed shut, but it was actually a trap door secured by an interior latch. So he would typically wait to unlatch this trap door until he had hit the riverbed at the bottom of the river.
Wait, the riverbed?
Yes.
So he's like in the box. He's already gotten out of the handcuffs, and now he's just curled up, much like I am when I ever record these episodes. Curled up in the box. He's like, okay, I'm getting thrown over the bridge.
Cool, hit the water.
3, 2, and then water, and then sinking. Because what is he worried about, like popping up too soon?
He's worried about someone seeing the latch or like seeing the door open.
Oh.
I think, yeah.
But then they have to get this box back every time, right?
Yeah.
So does he then later like go diving for the box?
Someone does, I'm sure.
What's in the box? I'm kidding.
Okay, so he would typically wait until the box hit the riverbed before he unlatched the door. But there was one time the crate landed with the trap door.
Oh, I bet it did.
On the bottom.
Yeah, because you're just getting fucking thrown into the river.
Yes, and he almost died. It said like he had to, I don't know, like wiggle or I don't know what the words were.
Yeah.
He ended up being able to unlatch it and get out, but it was scary enough to him that he started unlatching it before he hit the bottom of the river.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. This same year, 1908, he wrote a book called The Unmasking of Robert Houdin, which is the magician he got the name Houdini from. And it tells how Houdin did all of his
It's just
magic
a Taylor
tricks.
Swift album. This famous person, you know, they ain't shit.
They
just
ain't
like
shit.
absolutely the right album.
Exactly. And he
Why would he
explained
write that? Does he have beef with this guy?
because it seems like Robert Houdin never either he claimed he had real magical powers or he never denied
He's
it.
like the Long Island medium where he's like, you are a fraud.
And this
Okay.
is a precursor to where we will see Houdini's life kind of go in the next like decade.
I'm
or so.
realizing right now I also have no idea how Houdini dies.
Oh, it's a fun one.
Okay, good. Much like Sylvester Graham. Wait, do they sell hamburgers out of Houdini's house these days?
Houdini himself actually sells hamburgers. He never died.
Good.
Houdin, in case you were wondering,
You take the order through a trumpet and
Yeah.
he's like,
and then he shines a
cheese.
flashlight in your
Exactly.
face. I am Houdini. You are a fraud.
And he wants no onions.
And you're lactose intolerant. I'm not giving you a milkshake.
Good. We're in it now, folks.
Yes. So Houdin, if you're wondering, he died in 1871, so well before this.
Oh.
Yeah, Houdin,
Sorry.
not Houdini.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
Because I heard Houdini died in 1971.
No.
And I was like, what the fuck? But I was like, 1871 and Houdin,
Also a different
not
person.
Houdini.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
He died in 1871, so it's not like Houdini's like affecting his stage performances or anything anymore. Oh my god, great. Okay, so 1910.
Barely here.
Yeah. Harry Houdini goes to Australia. He does some shows there, and most notably, he is the first person to successfully fly a plane in Australia. He sustained flight for...
Wait, that's it?
Yeah, that's
He's
it.
just a... Okay.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
He sustained flight
Nice.
for 3.5 minutes.
What
and
year is that?
1910.
Okay. That's... Okay.
Yeah, he had his own plane
Okay.
that he like brought to Australia, it sounds like. Anyway, he stayed in flight for 3.5 minutes, and he was quoted saying afterwards, I guess this isn't a an actual quote, but he was saying basically, if people do not remember any of my other tricks, at least I will be remembered for the first man to fly in Australia. For being the first man to fly in Australia.
Really low bar there.
I know. Okay, 1912/1913, it wasn't super clear. Sources said different things. He started doing the Chinese water torture cell escape, which he called, quote, the Upside Down, and this premiered in Berlin.
Him and Dick Cheney, I guess. He tortured prisoners and is a prisoner of war. Sorry, not prisoner of war. War criminal.
War. sorry.
Wrong word to get wrong there.
Anyway.
It's fine.
Okay.
America violated human rights.
So this water torture cell that he used was custom made for him, and Houdini also patented it. He had 2 made so that one was always coming with him in case the first one wasn't working like it should. It looked basically like an aquarium that was like tipped on its side, so it was longer than it was wide.
Okay.
Or taller than it was wide. It had like a glass front pane, and it had a mahogany and nickel plated steel frame. It was 20.
Is it glass on all 4 sides?
I don't think so. I'll show you a picture. It looks like it's just glass on the front side. But it is 26.5 inches wide, 59 inches tall, and it weighed 7,000 pounds and held 250 gallons of water. So it's a hefty tank.
It's a big tank.
Yes. The front pane of glass, so only the front pane. The front pane of glass was 0.5 inches thick and tempered, so it was not going to be super easy to break. The trick. Houdini would always put the cell wherever an audience member told him to show that there was no trapdoor being used.
What do you put the cell? Oh, put
it
literally the
wherever
box
on the stage. Yes.
Oh, okay. And then they got a garden hose, and they're like, "Come back after intermission."
All right, come back.
And all of this tank will be filled.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he did other tricks during this. I don't know. Okay, so he
Because it fills in there.
Pick a card.
Is this your card? Yes. I keep rewatching that. Is this your draft card? Yes, exactly.
Okay. He would also allow a spectator to examine the Chinese water torture cell, and he would offer them $1,000, like in 1920 money, if they could prove Houdini could get oxygen while he was inside the cell.
Is there a reason he keeps calling it the Chinese water torture? Or is it just like a little ethnocentrism, little xenophobia?
I didn't really want to look it up, so
That's
I didn't.
Fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Preserve your peace. I get that.
Chances are... No. Yeah.
Okay. He's not and then he repeats a Buddhist say. Okay.
He did there was a couple other tricks. I only cover maybe a few tricks that he does. There are a couple tricks that I did read about that did originate in the Middle East, and they did talk about that basis. So it's possible this did originate in China. I'm not sure. It didn't specify.
Gotcha.
So I can't tell you.
Friday night messaged me.
Who?
Friday night.
Uh-oh. So you wanted to serenade you?
Just that he had a great time.
Well,
and of course he did. I'm a delight.
All right. Whatever you say, big gay. You just stop saying
Dear friends, never tell your friend any trauma that you have.
I literally just say that to people.
I know. Well, it's fine. It's funny. And also, I'm not particularly bothered by it when my friends say it. It's just person who knows nothing about me. Oh, good job finding one detail about me. I have a fantastic uncle. I have a complicated uncle, but when we were kids was great. And my sister's name is Alexandra. That is her government birth certificate name. Yeah. That was tough for me to say as a kid, so I always just called her Allie, because I had I legitimately did have a speech impediment as a kid. Alex was not a word I was able to say, so it was Allie, and so everyone in my family started calling her Allie. And her name's not Allison, it's Alexandra. And so it became Allie, which became Al, which then became Big Al, which from one of my uncles became, well, what are there, alligator? Which then became Gator Baby. Well, shit, how's it going, Gator Baby? How you up to? Uncle has a lot of, here's the thing, whenever he would eat a lot of food, as we'd walk away from the table, this uncle would go, well, I feel like a stuffed tick. And if someone was driving super fast or we got out of a place super early, he'd say, Well, we were off like a dirty brassiere. And that is how I found out what brassieres were.
Oh my God.
You know what they are, right?
I think I do.
Bras.
Yeah.
He was saying we were off faster than a dirty bra. And he doesn't mean like the fabric is saturated.
Yeah.
And so he always called my sister Gator Baby and Alligator, which actually now I'm like, that's actually a really cute name.
That is a really
for
cute
a really
nickname.
complicated man. He lived in the country. You can kind of fill in the parts that made him complicated. But he loved my aunt. He loved us as children. I think for the most part, his heart is good. And I would introduce him to 0 of my friends.
That's sweet stuff.
The millennial experience.
We don't love our extended family.
Are we jumping back into
Yes.
it right away? Was that a good break for you as well?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about whoever you're messaging?
No, I certainly don't want to talk about that out loud.
I love shaming you like a mother.
Then I'm
who's
going to
on
do
their
it
phone.
anyways. If you're going to shame me, we can take a second. Go ahead and fill in this gap here, Maya.
I wanna push you all around. and I
You
will.
can't cue up things that I'm going to want to talk about because it delays this break.
It's true. Okay. What was the last thing I said? I don't actually know. Something about the.
Go ahead and
Tank.
take this second to plan your response. I'm back in my classroom. Well, I will.
I won't.
So, Maya,
Okay.
tell me more about Houdini. Flawless segue.
Okay. So, the trick. Houdini would always put the cell wherever the audience is. Oh, we already talked about that.
So, Maya, tell me more about Houdini.
Jesus Christ. Houdini would lay on his back while his assistants put his feet through the mahogany stalks.
Okay.
And then pulleys would lift him into the air upside down, and then he would be lowered into the tank head first.
Would love just to see that happen.
I know. The stalks holding his feet then acted as the lid to
Okay.
the tank.
Oh, okay.
And then,
Part of me is just like there's like water like billowing out.
yeah,
as
so
they,
there
like,
is
lower
water
him
that
down.
falls out as he's getting put in just
Okay.
because volume. But an assistant always stands by with an axe to break the front glass pane if things start going awry.
Oh,
There are
that makes it real.
I know, right? There are curtains drawn around the cell while music plays, and then 2 minutes later, Houdini would emerge from behind the cell. The stock is still on top of the tank, and the locks are still in place. So they would lock the stock to the top of the cell. The secret is in the stock. The stocks were deep set, meaning that when Houdini was immersed into the tank, some of the water would flood over the sides
Right.
and put a small pocket of air between the surface of the water and the bottom of the stocks.
Has to be like an inch at most.
Oh yeah,
though.
not much. So the two sides of the mahogany boards that formed the stock separated slightly when it's secured to the top of the cell. So when I'm picturing this, it's like they lock the stocks in, and that pressure or that pull of locking it kind of opens up the stocks a little bit.
Okay.
And this allows Houdini to push his feet upward and twist sideways and pull his feet through the slightly enlarged stalks of
Okay.
his feet. And so now he's free
So
from
they're
the
big
stocks.
enough for him to like intentionally be dropped in, but he kind of like slip
he can
out
kind
of
of
the thing,
slip out,
keeping his
yes,
feet.
and
Okay.
then he is able to flip around and get a breath of air from that air pocket.
So the real thing is someone should be there to like tighten up his feet to make sure he can't slip out.
that would be
That
a
would
way
be the
to
thing.
actually
Okay.
kill him. Yeah.
Cool. Figured it out, guys. 100 years later. Grant's on the case. The medium.
Once he's done, he's able to flip and take a breath in that small air pocket. The stalks are also hinged to open from the bottom side so that Houdini can climb out without disturbing the lock. So
Of course they are.
Yeah, so then he closes it back up, emerges from behind the curtain, and voila.
I feel like for someone who has no problem with handcuffs,
Mm-hmm.
that 2 minutes feels like a long time for him.
And that is the time it took initially. I'm not sure if that started
Because they've
getting
thrown
faster.
him in boxes in the river, and he waited more than 2 minutes
Mm-hmm.
to have that happen.
It might be just hard to get the stocks to because he's able to hold his breath for 3 minutes or something
Right.
like that. So it might just take a while for him to get to a place where he's able to flip
Sure.
around.
Part of you also wonders too if you do it too fast, does that raise suspicions?
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so July 17th, 1913, Cecilia Steiner Weiss, Houdini's mother, dies of a stroke.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. That kind of came out of nowhere.
I know. Sorry. His mother was reported by many sources as the single most important person to him, supporting him through all of his endeavors. Whenever he took breaks from on the road, she let him stay with her. She passed away.
In the house he bought her?
Yes.
That's kind of her.
But it's still,
it is
that
really
was
sweet.
before he bought the house,
Oh,
when he
okay.
was still trying to find success.
Okay.
So she passed away while he was performing in Copenhagen, and when he was told around the time
He's
of the
not
performance,
even there when she dies?
he
Aw.
reportedly fainted. Yeah.
It's just late enough in the evening that I'm like a little emotional, and
That-
my allergies have triggered my eyes enough that it actually wind will make me cry at this point. So I'm like, that's so fucking beautiful.
I know. So it took him several days to make it back to the brownstone in New York.
But he like heads out right away.
He
He's
heads
like,
out right
"I'm
away,
leaving."
yeah. But when he did make it back, they held off on the burial, which is actually against Jewish custom, but they did it so that he
he
could
could
see
get there,
his
yeah.
mother one last time. But so when he made it back to New York, he buried her with a pair of wool slippers that she had asked him to get her while he was in Europe.
No, that's so sweet. He's so got him for her. Listen, those of us who have listened to the podcast know I care about Teresa deeply. That's
I know.
so
That's
kind.
so
That's great.
Sweet. And those who were close to him or even knew him said that he was never quite the same after she passed.
No, not the permanent damage.
No. So anyway, back to Escapes.
Okay. Wham!
September 8th, 1915. So 2 years later, he did his first suspended straitjacket escape
Okay.
in Kansas City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
In Kansas City.
So
okay.
do you remember Houdini's younger brother, the one that toured with him for like a hot second
Like
before he
Cole
found
or something?
His nickname was Dash.
Okay, yeah. So,
Ferenz Desco Vice.
so not Cole.
No,
Okay.
not really. I was gonna let you have it. So this particular straitjacket escape was not the first that either Houdini or Houdini's younger brother had done, because
Okay.
Houdini's younger brother at this point is also doing escape acts.
Okay.
This particular suspended straitjacket escape was born out of sibling rivalry.
I love stuff like this.
Houdini's younger brother, Ferenz Desco Weiss, when immigrating to the U.S., Ferenz was changed to Theodore.
Okay.
And then we already talked about their last name was changed to Weiss. So his stage name, the younger brother's name, was Theodore Hardin.
Instead of Houdini.
Yeah, so now we have
Hardin.
Hardin and Houdini. Neither of those are their actual names.
Good.
That's
Here's
hilarious
the
to
thing.
me.
Griffin and I know how to swim because we were signed up for the same swim class
Yeah.
lesson, and they would progress you along based off skill, not year level. And so Griffin once surpassed me at swim lessons, and I cried so hard. My mom got us ice cream and then never brought us back to swim lessons. But the thing is we were far enough along,
That it was
having
fine.
pushed each
Yeah.
other, that we legitimately could swim.
I love that for you. Have
Yeah.
I told you about the time that I almost drowned?
No, or else I wouldn't have brought up a swimming story. Do you want to
was
share?
Second grade, we were at a pool for like our fun day at the end of
Okay.
the school year, and everyone was lining up to take the like swim test. You could go into the big kid pool, and my brain was like, yeah, I want to be one of the cool kids.
I love it.
Dear listener, I did not know how to swim. And I did not know that you needed to know how to swim.
To be in the pool.
Yeah. And so I jumped into the pool to take the swim test.
Okay.
I start doggy paddling because I don't know how to swim.
Sure.
I start drowning.
Like right away,
Like,
right?
yeah, I mean, I make it a few feet.
Okay.
The lifeguard does not jump in to save me.
Okay.
Because you have to like make it like half the length of one lap, basically, and then you just come out, and then they're like, okay, you passed.
Sure.
The lifeguard did not jump in to save me. My second grade teacher had to jump in and save me, fully clothed. She lost a diamond earring at the bottom of the 12-foot section
Kim,
of
there
the
are people
pool.
literally dying.
That's just like my guilt that remembers that. I remember getting out of the pool, and I overheard the lifeguard talking to like one of the parents or something, saying, well, it's not really like my responsibility.
To save someone in a pool?
Yeah, as a lifeguard. But anyway, I almost drowned, and then I like I think my brain, I don't know if my brain was like, that wasn't a big deal, or my brain was like so traumatized that it kind of forgot. I
was like erase immediately.
yeah, and so I legitimately, like, I didn't tell my parents, not because I like didn't want to tell them, which was also
Sure.
the case, but I
Right.
didn't tell them because I legitimately didn't think to tell them. And so we were at a birthday party either that night or the next night, and one of my friend's parents came up and...
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I went to a small elementary school. There was
Right.
like 30 kids a grade. And so one of my friend's parents came up to my parents and were like, how is Maya? Is she okay? And they were like...
From what?
What? And then I got signed up for swim lessons immediately.
I have the swimming merit badge from
Yeah.
Boy Scouts, which
Okay.
at Boy Scout camp means you had to get shoved into a pool with all your clothes on, but you have actually all your clothes on and then also a bathing suit, because one of the requirements is that while treading water, you can take your jeans off, tie the legs into a knot, still treading water, blow water into the jeans, and then curl it to make your own impromptu life vest.
Floaty?
Correct. And then now you swim with your floaty to the center of the pool where you ditch your floaty and you swim down 10 feet and retrieve a black brick, and you come up to the surface and you throw the brick onto the pool, and that is how you earned your swimming merit badge.
I would die.
At least that is how they told me I had to earn my swimming merit. You know, you're the kids who are like, here's your challenge. You're like, oh, okay.
Okay.
And I remember being like both proud that I was able to do it and being like, oh, wow, that was actually an insane amount of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like right now where I'm like, oh, I was fit back then. I'm fit in a different way now, but I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Also,
remember-
go ahead.
No, I remember like this was when I was older, probably like 6th grade, we would dive for dive for like the dive toys, you know? And I remember going down to like the bottom of like the 10, 12 foot. And now thinking about doing that,
Yeah.
I would rather die.
Correct. Ear infection to the max.
Yeah,
Over
no.
the last 6 minutes have been like, Grant and then Maya know how to swim. Like, that's been the whole point.
You can't kill us by drowning us.
I would love to be in the water. On a ledge, less so, but yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways,
take that. Okay.
So Houdini and Houdana.
Houdini and Houdine.
Wait, shut up. No, it's not. It's Houdini and Houdine. Coming back to it.
Oh gosh, where was I? Hardine.
Hardine. Okay.
Houdini and Hardine. I was like,
That's a little bit better.
Yeah. So both brothers did straight jacket escapes prior to this.
Okay.
But, and where we were, dear listener, is
To
that
catch everyone back up.
this is the first suspended straight jacket escape that Houdini did, and it was born out of sibling rivalry. And so both brothers prior to this did straitjacket escapes, but they were done kind of behind a curtain. Hardine, at some point when he was performing, was asked or like dared to do a straitjacket escape in front of the audience
Right,
without the curtain. And he did it, and he received a standing ovation.
Whoa.
And he told Houdini, and Houdini was like,
We'll do anything for praise.
yeah, was like, I have to get more praise than my brother. So, the trick. Houdini was strapped into a straitjacket in front of the crowd, and his ankles are bound.
Okay.
A crane lifts him
Oh.
from by his ankles 75 feet off the ground, and he is hanging upside down in a straitjacket. Yeah, and then he escapes from the straitjacket.
How does he escape from the crane? And also, why would you want to escape
don't
from
think
the
he escaped from the
Lower
crane.
me back down gently.
I think the idea of the crane was meant to give the impression that there's no trick to the escape, that there's like
He's not
nothing
like grabbing anything. He's
yeah.
just literally wrestling with a
with
straight
himself.
jacket.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I don't know if you've heard this, but I've heard that Houdini escaped straitjackets by dislocating his shoulder.
I've heard that 100%.
Yes. So that's not true.
Okay.
It is.
He has no shoulders.
Tis but a flesh wound.
He is made of jello.
Okay, so the secret is revealed in Houdini's 1910 book.
Okay. He's a prolific writer. Gotcha.
Yes, he wrote a lot of books. The trick is to get slack inside the jacket as it's strapped on. So you just kind of take fabric into
Okay.
your grip as you're doing it.
Oh, okay.
And so that gives you wiggle room. Another thing is that a lot of people, when they're strapped, will kind of get strapped like this.
Right.
Their arms folded.
That's like with elbows touching the back of your shoulder. Sorry.
Yes,
with
just-
palms touching the back of your
just
shoulders.
like your arms kind of layered one on top of the other.
Right.
He says that you need to make sure your arms are crossed with your dominant arm above your non-dominant arm.
So I'm right-handed, so like this.
Yes.
Are you
So
left-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Oh, that's your right-handed.
Our arms are crossed the
It's been a
same
long day.
way.
I'm like, wait, you're wrong. Nope, it's the exact
Nope.
same.
Okay, so that is to give you more. It'll be explained in a second.
Okay.
So you kind of grab fabric into your grip as the jacket is being strapped and tightened around you. He would pinch and pull outward to loosen the material around his chest, and he would take a large breath as it's being tightened at the very last stages to expand his rib cage to give him even more wiggle room. Once upside down, he would use his dominant arm. So in this case, in our case, his right arm. I think he was also right-handed. He would force his non-dominant arm's elbow out, away from his body, forcing slack into the right shoulder, which allowed Houdini to pull his dominant arm over his head because it's like kind of strapped around, so it gives him more leeway in that case. And being upside down actually helped because gravity helped him get his arm over his head. And once his arms are free enough to be out in front of his body, he has agency to undo the buckles and straps and the cuffs with his teeth and like his hand, wherever they need to, whatever needs to undo them can undo them. Once the cuffs are off, he could unbuckle the remaining buckles and he could slip free from the jacket entirely. So he would like kind of drop. So he
kind of gets sewn into a straitjacket and then reveals all the slack he'd produced, and then like with his teeth and stuff was able to. It does take away a lot of the magic. Now that you hear it, you're like, oh, it's just like the most obvious way you would do it, just with the steps now 100%. Involved in it.
One of the misconceptions is that dislocating the shoulder was necessary to do this. It is not necessary, and he did do it, but it was only in a last resort, like if he did not have the slack he needed to.
Could have absolutely lived without the fact that he would occasionally do it, but not always.
So when he first did this trick, it took him half an hour to escape. By the time he was like really good at this trick, it took him 3 minutes.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. And then occasionally, as I think I mentioned before, people would like create handcuffs and straitjackets for him to escape out of as a challenge. So when that happened, he was not above keeping like a tool in his hand to cut.
He was a cheater.
To cut the straps and buckles.
Cheater's gonna cheat.
So he didn't actually cut the straitjacket itself. He would still try and escape it normally. But he would use it to cut any buckles and stuff that was not easy to take off.
He brought something that was going to make life hard for him. He was going to cheat to get out of it.
Yes, he said no. There's an author who wrote a book about Houdini. I'm not going to tell you the name of the book because it'll kind of give away what we talk about later. But what he said is, they locked him in a dreaded Siberian prison van, bottled him in a milk can, and entombed him in a block of ice in Holland. They shackled to a spinning windmill, the chassis of an automobile, the muzzle of a loaded cannon. They put him in the padlocked U.S. mail bag, roped him to the 12th-story girder of an unfinished skyscraper, sealed him in a giant envelope, and boxed him in a crate nailed tight and dropped in New York Harbor. He emerged triumphant and smiling.
Okay. But he also planned all of that stuff, right? Yeah. What do you mean they entombed him in a block of ice?
I don't know.
Okay.
I had already been so many hours deep in this at this point. I was like, he was in a block of ice. I don't know.
Maya's like, I'm trying to do the entire career of Houdini right now.
Yeah. So after 3 decades of performing, Houdini gets into motion pictures. Yeah.
Why is that every person's success ever? Well, now that I've had success on other platforms, I'm turning to video.
So 1918, he releases or produces The Master of Mystery. He becomes one of Hollywood's first action heroes. By this point, he's now in his mid-40s and he's physically not as capable as he used to be. So he's excited at the prospect of being able to perform and escape once and having it preserved forever.
I hear that. Yep.
Yeah, same.
Bodies have a limitation, and it creeps. I don't know why. I just assumed it would never happen to me. Yeah. It has. So I get that. What year is it at this point?
1918. So this is like the beginning of.
So he hasn't started his like you're a fraud kind of thing yet. Okay.
No.
Also explains why he's not serving in World War I. He's in his late 30s. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So he started his own production company and a few other ventures, but ultimately none of these were nearly as successful as his escape like acts and stuff, and none of them were like super profitable. I did see a couple sources that say he did make money on some of the movies that he produced, but none of them were like
he didn't become a film star.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Exactly. So
I think especially when you're watching a trick happen on camera, you're like, of course there's movie magic happening.
What I was going to say is that if any of the tricks that I mentioned to you sound like something you want to watch, you can absolutely Google them, which is cool.
Oh, it's
you can
all...
see them.
Oh, nice. It's
you
all
can see
documented?
performances of all of them because he did record a majority of them. And that brings us to the second half of our story.
Second half? Okay.
Spiritualism in the 1920s.
So really, you're about to go into Houdini the detective. Okay.
So, and this part has most of my favorite facts about Houdini.
Okay.
My favorite, like, little
How many
tidbits.
trumpets are involved, though? That's the real
Actually, none.
question. Okay, here's the thing. An hour ago, I wouldn't have known that's tough to hear. Now I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, technically, that
I'm
story...
still interested, I guess.
No, right, whatever. Anyway, so remember that story that I opened with was 1925. So that
Okay.
is well into this part that we're going to talk about. So Houdini was always kind of embarrassed by his lack of formal education.
Oh.
And so was therefore always kind of craving the attention of scholars and intellectuals. So while he was enjoying the height of fame in the 1920s, he sends a copy of the book he had written, The Unmasking of Robert Houdin, to one of the most influential intellectuals he can think of who lives in Europe.
Karl Marx.
No.
Okay.
Someone who would value his talents in deductive reasoning. Who do you think it is?
Oh, Sherlock Holmes.
Who wrote Sherlock Holmes? Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
There it is. Okay. Like Christie, Agatha, or whatever.
No.
Agatha Christie.
Agatha Christie.
There we go.
So none other than the creator of the Sherlock Holmes.
Wait, do they share tips? Do they become pen pals?
We'll get there.
This is a friendship podcast.
Sir
Target lady
Arthur
hands.
Conan Doyle. So Doyle has some opinions
Okay.
on spiritualism. What do you think he believes?
So this is the guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is a man of science and believes spiritualism is a load of hooey.
He absolutely believes spiritualism is real.
And is eating graham crackers to control his lust.
Exactly.
Okay,
So I think that's so fucking funny because Houdini is like a known stage magician. His whole fortune is based in tricking audiences. And he is like, spiritualism is a load of fraud.
Right.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of the icon of deductive reasoning, still
Like
used.
science,
Yeah.
yes.
And he's like, yeah, spiritualism is absolutely
I've met a
real.
ghost before. And Houdini is like, it's a lie.
Exactly.
The lie is standing in front of you. It's me.
It's me. I'm the lie. Okay.
Wait, does he start to go on this rampage just to prove his friend wrong? Because that is why we started this podcast.
Kind
Tell
of.
me more, Maya. Tell me more.
So one might think someone who has made their fame and fortune on magic, Houdini might be a supporter of spiritualists and mediums. But while Houdini never claimed he doesn't believe in spirits, he did harbor a strong dislike of mediums, or as he called them, quote, charlatans who produced all of their effects through natural means and tricks.
So Houdini wanted people to believe that he could get out of all of these situations because he was like really good at escaping, not because he was magic.
Yes.
Okay. There was a hand flourish there for those of you not on YouTube.
So he felt mediums were taking advantage of those who were experiencing intense grief and that this was not ethically right. He was open to the idea of spiritualists and mediums, and he attended many seances since his father and mother both passed.
I mean, who hasn't?
Yeah, when have you attended a seance?
I've been running into too much.
Okay, cool.
I know a couple witches.
That's fair. But he never met or had an experience with a medium who successfully convinced them of their gifts. He was always able to use his talents as an escape artist and as a stage magician to debunk their, quote, talents.
That's actually kind of sad. He's like, I would love for someone to help me talk to my mother, but all of you are hucksters and frauds.
Exactly.
So we do this thing called a Monday mantra in my class, and it helps frame the work that we're going to do this week. And you always give it to the kid who's like worked really hard the week before. So I gave it to a sophomore who asked me what my thoughts were on David Goggins.
Oh.
And I was like, I think he's a huckster, a fraud, and a snake oil salesman. And any person who tells you they have learned hard and fast rules to live your life, you should be skeptical of. And he was like, all right, bet, mister, Monday morning. Here's my David Goggins quote that I picked.
Oh, no.
I am teaching trolls. I was actually in that moment like
Proud.
So proud. It's like, you get it. That's funny.
That is pretty funny.
Where did this come? Right. Disprove. Yep, go ahead.
Yep.
Okay.
So Houdini, we've already talked about that he was a prolific writer.
Okay.
He did write several books on his opinions of spiritualists and the like. One was published in 1920 called Miracle Mongers and Their Methods. And another was 1924, Magician Among the Spirits.
Okay.
So Arthur Conan Doyle. Going to go into a little backstory on him.
The author of Sherlock Holmes.
The author of Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
He published 7 Sherlock stories between 1887 and 1891? Yeah, 1891.
He publishes 12 stories in like 4
7.
years. Still, that's a
That's
lot
a lot,
to publish.
right?
Yeah.
I know. I was surprised they came out that
it's still
fast.
kind of the same structure for everyone, but it's different
still-
details.
yeah.
And super interesting.
They're all very like intricate
Yeah.
too. Yeah, so I was surprised by that. He was accepted into upper class intellectual and author kind of societies. Between 1891 and 1893, he wrote 6 more novellas.
Oh my God.
And then, quote, killed Holmes before Holmes killed him.
I love a work-life balance.
Right?
How does he kill Holmes?
I want to say it was one of his nemesises that killed him.
Old age is the way to go.
Can't remember. Well, he brings Holmes back.
Oh,
In a few
so it's a
years.
fake killing.
Yes, but
I love it.
he is like, I'm done with this character. so
Ran
he
out of
kills him.
money, huh?
Yeah. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle served in World War I as a war correspondent and a medical surgeon between 1896 and 1899. He then brought Holmes back to life. This is just a lot of things that happened between that and the next thing. He brought Holmes back to life, wrote a few more stories. His first wife died, and then he married his second wife, which was a longtime friend. Arthur grew up...
Suspicious. Sounds like a case for
Sherlock Holmes!
for bringing the transatlantic accent back.
It's a coping mechanism. Okay. So Arthur grew up Catholic, but began showing an interest in spiritualism as early as the 1880s.
Okay.
He became convinced that there was an unseen world out there. He did not become a strong advocate / basically missionary for spiritualism until the end of World War I, and then that wave of spiritualism hit the U.S. and
So he joined it when
Europe.
everyone else joined it.
I mean, he was in it before, but he didn't become like, hell yeah, I'm doing this until everyone
I think
else
it'd
was
be
in it.
heavens, yeah. Again, that was actually so
This is the
quick.
last episode. That was really quick. I did appreciate that. Okay. So, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle began a spiritualist lecture tour in England. Generally, his lectures lasted like an hour and a half, and they were done like 6 days a week to reach the most people that he could
That is,
possibly.
by the way, my dream profession. I
Just
give
like-
just a traveling lecture series where I'm in a different city and I have to speak for 1 hour and everyone's
Yeah.
there to listen to me.
Yeah.
It's like a concert.
I can see you as like the preteen in their bedroom, like practicing their consort entrance.
Yeah, I got a degree in history education. What
well.
did you think? If you want me to preach for you, just let me know. I do whatever. Lecture series sounds a lot of fun.
I can see it.
This is the time where I'm supposed to find out the thing that really makes my career.
Yeah.
Margaret Sanger, Sylvester Graham, Houdini, Houdana,
Houdini Hardeen.
Ardeen.
Okay, so one of his most attended lectures, though, was attended by 8,000 people, and he spoke for 15 hours
I hate that.
in the rain.
Nice.
Hate it.
Like the Notebook.
Okay. His Sir Arthur's oldest son, it was his second child, oldest son. His name was Kingsley, died in 1918 of influenza. And then Doyle's brother died in 1919, and then 2 of his nephews also passed shortly after. So Kingsley is the second child to Arthur Conan Doyle and Louisa Hawkins, who was the first wife. He dies of influenza in October of 1918.
It might have been the Spanish flu.
Yes, it was around that time, yeah. During World War I, he had served in the military from 1915 to 1917. And when he died, Doyle was on the lecture circuit when Kingsley was in critical condition, was in critical condition before he passed. And Doyle did not get a chance to see him in his final days. And he said, and I quote, As it was, I was able to go straight on the platform and tell the meeting that I knew my son had survived the grave and there was no need to worry.
Oh, so he's like, hey, y'all, I've actually already checked in. He was like, hey, I was just in London. Now I'm in your ear. Spiritualism. 15 hours later.
Yes.
Oof.
In a letter,
I hate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
In a letter to his wife, he said, quote, I do not fear death for the boy, since I have become a convinced spiritualist, death became rather an unnecessary thing. And he believed spiritualism was a, quote, new revelation delivered by God to console the bereaved.
I'm not here to judge anyone for their grief journey.
Yeah.
And if this was how this guy processes grief, that's fine. And I'm sure he legitimately thought about it that way, that he was like, I do feel like I've already been in contact with my son, so I want it all to be genuine. But it's so hard to hear stories like this and not be like, you're running a scam. Like, you're going to have people pay $10 to hear from the person they've loved the most in this world. And you're going to make up some mumbo jumbo. Like, it's all of our stories end up being like, hey, but also that's fraud.
Yeah, that's not cute.
That's not a good thing to do to people. Be weird on your own. We live in Colorado. We know plenty of weird people who just fuck off in the mountains, and that's fun.
Fine. Yeah, don't tell people that they don't need to see their dying relative because they will again in the afterlife.
They'll come visit
weird.
you. They'll make the train journey.
Yeah. So anyway, Houdini and Sir Arthur had a bit of an iconic friendship.
Okay.
Beginning in the 1920s. One of their main topics of discussion was spiritualism. And
would they bring Houdini along?
To what?
Like these lectures and stuff?
We'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit. So Houdini did shows in Europe, and I think that's how they kind of first met, is that he had sent his book to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and they had a discussion. There was a famous group of performing mediums around the time, I believe. I can't remember their name. There were brothers, and they had a cabinet, basically, where they would like be tied up, and then music would play from the cabinet, and it was the spirits communicating. Whole thing.
What?
That's not even the weirdest thing we're going to talk about. You gotta stop.
Sorry. So it's like,
I can cover them at some point. They're actually very interesting.
Everyone had a Ouija board experience when they were in middle school, high school. These are nuts. Okay.
Exactly.
I'm eagerly listening.
Yes. So there is some evidence around this time that Houdini was toying with the idea of being a supporter of the spiritualist movement.
Okay. Guilty by association.
Yeah, since the death of his father, and perhaps even before, Houdini showed interest in spiritualism and attended many seances, but could always see through the medium's tricks. He wanted to believe them, but had never met a medium who successfully convinced him. There are some sources who like to suggest that the death of his mother is the one that prompted him to go to spiritualism, but this can actually be debunked by many sources. He actually advertised in 1987 for mediums to come to him so that he could like debunk them or not, or like they could prove their talents to him, and then he would try and debunk what they're doing. And that happened.
Come to me, I'll ruin your career.
Well, have you heard of
us sales pitching to other companies?
Exactly.
Come to us, we'll ruin your career.
Come on.
We would love to work with you.
It is also possible that he only entertained this idea when talking with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle because he craved the attention of a scholar and intellectual, which, like, fair.
A little celebrity worship.
I also crave external validation.
Just don't say it to her face because she doesn't like that.
No, I don't want to be told that I crave it. I'll tell you. You don't tell me. Okay, in his 1922 film, The Man from Beyond, the main character is seen reading a book that is by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and he's like nodding in agreement to whatever he's reading. And this is seen as Houdini's endorsement of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
That's real subtle, but okay.
Yeah, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle in return endorsed the film, which like was great for Houdini.
So they just had a partnership.
Yeah, basically. So in 1922, Houdini opens his home for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who comes to America to do his lecture circuit in America.
Okay.
And they already are disagreeing at this point on spiritualism, but they're like still friends. They're like, they're like, I don't agree with you, but I'm open to having you as a friend and open to having discussions with you on the topic. So this is kind of a long quote from a scholarly journal that I read about Houdini and Doyle and their life. So during one such visit, Houdini wished to try a new illusion on his visiting guest. Houdini brought out an ordinary slate with 2 holes bored into 2 of the corners. A wire had been tied in the holes, and Conan Doyle hung the slate by the 2 metal holes to ensure that Houdini had not tampered with the materials. Houdini produced 4 cork balls and an inkwell filled with white ink. He had Conan Doyle inspect the balls, and he told them to select one from the 4. Houdini then cut the ball in half to reveal that the ball was indeed solid cork. Another ball was placed in the white ink, where it was coated and then put aside. "Have you a piece of paper in your pocket upon which you can write something?" Houdini asked his friend. Conan Doyle confirmed that he did, and Houdini asked him to walk out of the house as far as he wanted and for him to write a sentence on the piece of paper and return it to his pocket. The writer consented and left the house. Houdini had another friend stay with him to reassure Conan Doyle that Houdini would not leave the house. After walking 3 blocks and writing mene tekel up Sharson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just like absolute gibberish.
No,
basically.
but that's not gibberish at all.
Oh, really?
Can I see it real
Yeah,
quick?
it's right here.
Many. Oh, okay, maybe it's gibberish. There's a saying that it's like it has been counted and divided, and your fate has been sealed. It's like from ancient Hebrew, and it was a crucial part.
That would make sense.
Of it's part of the Assyrians after the sacking of Judea or something like that. But yeah, it's like an ancient reference.
That's
getting a fact check.
Crazy. Well, I just want to know. Mene means God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed and found wanting. And a parson, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Persians. Yeah.
I love being right.
I know you do. That was impressive, though. I didn't even think. I think I was so deep in it that I was like.
I know, and it looks like absolute gibberish
too,
because it's like not even. I mean, it's like deeply old Hebrew. Yeah, but it was so the story behind that is, and then like a hand appears in the king's chamber during the middle of a party and writes it on a wall, and they have to call in one of the scholars, and the scholar laughs, and it actually might be David in the story, like the biblical story, and he's like, I can tell you, but you're not gonna like what it says, and it says that your deeds have been counted, your kingdom has already been divided, and your state has been sealed.
I do have a vague memory of that now that I'm like, wow, that gave me goosebumps a little bit. Okay,
you become 30 and you just collect all of this wasted space of knowledge. And every now and then, Maia steps on something, and I'm like, actually, I know Old Hebrew. Would love to tell you more about it. And I'm here. Continue.
So
go.
Conan Doyle walks 3 blocks and writes this very upsetting phrase.
That only he and Grant in 2023 know. Yes, okay.
Well, Houdini is also Jewish, so if this is if this is Hebrew, there's a good chance he knows it. But he returns to the house. Houdini asks him to pick up the ink ball with a spoon and to hold it to the suspended slate. The cork ball stuck without any aid and proceeded to roll across the surface of the slate, writing the exact message that Conan Doyle had written on the paper. And he said to Conan Doyle, I beg you, Sir Arthur, do not jump to the conclusion that certain things you see are necessarily supernatural or the work of spirits just because you cannot explain them.
He's like, listen, I just did it. And you're a dumbass. I love Houdini. This is such a more interesting side of Houdini than is like, I can get out of things. He's like, I'm a hater, but I love you. That's us.
The best part of the story, so he says that to Conan Doyle. Bewildered, Conan Doyle would conclude later that the only way Houdini could have accomplished that trick was through the work of psychic aid.
You did all the math. You saw all the numbers. You showed your work. Wrong answer.
Houdini's like, look, that's not magic. And Conan Doyle was like, no way, that ain't magic.
He's like taking him by both shoulders and they go, I fooled you. I'm not magic. He's like, whatever you say, wizard. The boy who lived.
Come to die.
It's not Leviosa, it's you're a magician. Have you ever had those moments too where you're like, hey friend, in the most gingerly way I can possibly do this, what you believe is wrong, and your friend goes, fuck you, I don't believe you. Have you ever had moments like that? And it's like,
You're like, I literally walked you to the answer, and you took U-turn.
And my only response could be like, hey, okay.
Okay, fair enough.
All right.
So both men remain steadfast in their own opinions, but also remain friends for like a good couple years after this.
Sure.
Yeah. During this 1922 tour, Doyle even said he was prepared to renounce his creation of Sherlock Holmes as a demonstration of his faith in spiritualism.
Wait, he thinks Sherlock Holmes can figure that all out because of spiritualism?
No, he thinks that people will be like, well, why the hell do you believe it? You created this like deductive reasoning God, basically. And he's like, well, if like you really think that that's how I vibe.
I'll kill Sherlock again, but I won't.
He makes me a lot of money. Yeah.
Planned Parenthood, Graham Crackers, Sherlock Holmes. This is a mask ripoff. We are Scooby-Doo of 2023.
Yes, exactly.
Houdini would have gotten away with it too
Wizard!
if it wasn't for you meddling wizards and your ability to talk to the dead. I'm lost in it again. I gotta come out. I gotta like walk backwards out of whatever bit I'm in right now.
Okay.
I love you.
So. Okay. June 17th, 1922. Lady Doyle, Sir Arthur's second wife. The two families are on vacation together in Atlantic City.
Okay.
Because they are still
yikes,
close.
Okay.
Yeah. So Lady Doyle gives Houdini a seance in which she tries to channel Houdini's beloved mother, Cecilia, via automatic writing.
Love you, son. Eat your vegetables?
Yeah, so she basically said, like, I feel the spirit of your mother. I would love to do a seance for you. And he says, like, okay, like, fine, whatever.
Houdini just doesn't have any boundaries, is
He's
what
like,
it sounds like.
I'll have a seance. Like, I can't promise anything.
I promise you, if either one of us ever loses someone we care about, I'm never going to be like, I can talk to him now. Do you want to hear
I can
about
write
him?
you a note from them. Do you want it?
I think I know what they'd say to you.
I love you. That's it. That's all I got.
Hey, that thing you're worried about right now, don't be. Oh, they knew I had anxiety?
Whoa! A wizard! Oh my god. Okay.
I know just enough of the crime to have to talk to you, but not enough crime to solve it. ABC's The Medium every night, 7 p.m. My parents, we gotta watch this. We gotta sit down.
Okay, so automatic writing is writing said to be produced by a spiritual, occult, or subconscious agency rather than the conscious intention of the writer. Bess, Harry Houdini's wife, did warn Harry that Lady Doyle had been kind of prodding Bess about Harry's mom the day
that
before
she has,
the automatic writing. I
So
know.
his wife's, all wives in all of the stories you share are the most sane, normal people.
They're like,
it's a trap and I've already been probed. And he's like, I don't know, maybe give her a chance.
Harry's like, he's my friend though.
Would you not trust a woman named Lady Doyle? Yeah, I would not trust doilies. That's all that's been in my head for like 5 minutes now.
Okay, so Lady Doyle begins the automatic writing seance. She writes a letter from Cecilia to Harry Houdini. The letter is in English. It has a cross
From his
on
Hungarian
it,
mother? Ooh, his Jewish Hungarian mother?
and is written the day after her birthday, with no mention of the birthday. Yeah, so Harry's mother did not speak English, never learned, always spoke Hungarian.
Right.
Yeah, Houdini's mother was also Jewish, wife of a rabbi.
Right.
Would not have put the cross
Right.
on the note. Her birthday was the day before the seance, and this was not mentioned. So Houdini is like, this is a load of hooey. But he's like,
Shocking no one.
but I like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, so I'm just gonna say like, thank you for the seance. And then leave.
Every person's been like, no, the person you're dating, they're cool. Yeah, they're cool. Fast forward a month later, you aren't dating anymore? Thank God I can unfollow them on Instagram.
Oh God, I'm so sick of seeing
my
their
God.
stories.
I'd already muted them, but now I can just fully unfollow.
Wow.
This is the millennial experience.
That was my ex.
We all went to state colleges and had to navigate that somehow.
Yeah. So Arthur Conan Doyle takes the fact that Houdini doesn't like say anything bad about the seance as the fact that Houdini has now been swayed to the side of spiritualism.
Of course.
And he announces so publicly.
Oh.
And Houdini...
You gotta have better... Like, you have to have a higher level than we do on this podcast. I shared a letter from a fan, and I was like, and I haven't been given permission to share their name, so I won't. And then when I got their permission, I was like, and their name is Jane. It was like the most...
Okay.
And I didn't even do
No
last
one
names.
cared.
He's like, Harry Houdini, the magician, supports me. Because he's a magician.
Exactly.
He gets it. Okay.
And so Houdini can't let this go.
Yeah, I get
And so
that.
he sets the record straight and is also like, and also she like did not contact my mother.
Right.
Doyle,
Keep my mom's name out your mouth.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. She spoke Hungarian.
When's
not English.
Houdana gonna come back in here?
I think we don't talk about him
Oh,
anymore.
okay.
So Doyle responds defensively, obviously. So now Houdini is in a very public debate with one of the greatest known intellectuals of their time, and this drives Houdini A, insane,
Right.
B, to go after mediums.
Men will totally be like unmasking frauds as opposed to like go to therapy.
Yeah. Like maybe I really wanted to contact my mom and that's why this is so disappointing.
I'm so mad at you, and my course of action would be to attack the Long Island medium.
Yes. So this public disagreement lasts years.
I love that. Can I?
Yes,
I'm
go
gonna
for
have to
it.
jump in real quick. There was, who was it? It was a comedian, and I love them though. And she was like, yeah, like I kind of got into like some magic stuff for a little bit, and I got this big crystal ball, and the person who sold it to me was like, okay, when you're not using it in the house, like put a drapery or something over it.
Did not
And
buy
she
that.
was like, oh, because it's like magic. And
'cause
he
it'll
was
burn
like,
stuff.
no, it's a glass ball and it'll burn your house down. The sun catches it.
That's really funny. Wow.
You knew where it was coming to. It
I
was
did.
like it was gonna burn.
But it was still surprising.
It's so good to hear because you're like, that's a funny thought. No, for reals.
It'll
you
burn
buy a
your house
crystal
down.
Ball, you gotta keep it in a box or something when you're not using it, or else it'll burn your house down.
Yeah, so Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is on this lecture tour in the US. And so Houdini's response is to also go on a lecture tour in the US.
They just keep stitching each other's lecture
Yes,
tours.
until like the video of the first video is like not even recognizable. Yeah, that's literally what's happening. Houdini called Conan Doyle, quote, one of the greatest dupes
Oh.
before Congress.
Okay, love that he got a ticket to that. Don't know why they called him in.
He was campaigning for a bill that outlawed fortune telling.
Oh. I feel like federal government in the 1920s was so much funnier. Obviously, they're like still committing atrocities.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying any of that's good, but they're like, oh, when are we gonna get a handle on this fortune telling? Coca-Cola? Nice, thanks so much. Well, my baby took his heroin medicine, and now he's real quiet.
My husband went in for a bloodletting appointment the other day.
Well, then he had a heroin enema, and then it improved. What is this health insurance for, even? So he's like, ban my friend Sir Arthur, and I guess all magicians, but mainly him.
Exactly.
He could have gone on a hunger strike or something, dangled from a crane. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Continue.
Doyle, during this time, continued to express that he believed Houdini was a medium in denial.
That's actually so much funnier, and he had a great PR person, because Houdini's running around being like, don't listen to that man. That man was like a magician, ladies and gentlemen.
We can appreciate his work. He isn't accepting who he
The
is yet.
Magi is upset. We should be fearful of his powers.
Because he has not accepted them yet and does not know the length of which he will go.
He does not know what he speak, for a spirit possesses him. Just the epitome of gaslighting.
Exactly!
Epitome of gas.
Houdini's like, no, it's all just tricks.
Be gone, wicked spirit, and bring our truth teller back. Well, you know, Houdini, it's just a phase. It'll pass.
You'll accept your true self
He's
one
like
day.
re-closeting him as a magician.
He's going to a therapeutic camp hosted by Mike Pence.
Exactly. Did you see that skit with SNL where Mike Pence sits down and immediately goes, "I'm sorry, waiter, could you take the Mrs. Butterworth from the table? My wife's not here."
Yes, I said that. Oh my god. Okay. Doyle is quoted saying around this time, quote, "The spirit world might well be incensed against him for using psychic powers at the very time when he was attacking them. Houdini called Doyle naive and gullible."
Doyle's over here like, "I'm a bitch, I'm a fighter, I'm a lover, I'm a spirit, like he's just over here like, I am who I am. Houdini and I are both truth tellers. I'm just not magic like he is." That's so funny. That's so much better than anything I knew about Houdini before all of this.
Houdini's just like, no, like, I'm just good at tricking you.
Like the inverse of Halloween. He's like, "I'm not magic." And they're like, "Exactly what a wizard would say."
It's like the Salem witch trials. Like, more public.
We've thrown him in rivers that he's lived. How could he do that? He's like, "I can tell you. I wrote several books on how I did it." We'll never know because he's magic.
I will go before court and tell you how I did them. He's like, enough out of you, witch.
Don't make me have my wife call your mother again.
It's so funny.
A recently converted, suddenly English-speaking Hungarian Jewish mother of yours.
She will put you in your place.
She would be very disappointed.
She'll be very disappointed even though she let you follow your dreams.
Do you think your mother, who supported you always, would like to see you like this?
Okay, so Houdini called Doyle naive and gullible, citing something called the Cottingley Fairies.
It's just so hard. It's so easy to forget in the story that Doyle wrote Sherlock Holmes. That is not even like a crazy random
I know!
The author of Sherlock Holmes is like, he's magic. And Houdini's like, I'm literally not.
I'm not even leaving you clues. I'm literally telling you.
It's such a crazy relationship.
So. So Houdini called Doyle naive and gullible, citing something called the Cottingley Fairies. The Cottingley Fairies is a famous photograph that these two young girls took because they claimed to see fairies in their garden. And a lot of people were like, literally what? And so one of the articles, I didn't write it down, pointed out Sherlock Holmes would have noticed that there is a breeze going through the trees and not the wings of the fairies. And so that seems sus. However, Doyle wrote a whole book to show his belief in the photo.
God, is writing a book actually a lot easier? It's kind of a bucket list thing for me.
They're all writing so many books.
Well, they have so much time. They're working like 1 hour a week on a lecture tour.
True. So The Coming of Fairies was published, and the girls admitted that the fairies were cutouts from a book that they hung by like wires to take the picture. Ironically, one of Doyle's stories was in that same book. They took the fairies from. And Houdini was like, "You're gonna believe this guy?"
Like, he's a dumbass. And they're like, he's a scholar. What, you think it's easy to write a book? Yes, I do now.
He's
actually.
like, "I've written 6.
I do, exactly. Also, how believable is this photo of cutout fairies?
I don't know.
Is selling it for you. Can you see the wire in it?
I didn't look it up to be told. Okay, so 1924. This is like the beginning of their last, like, final battle between Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
It's like a Pokemon battle.
Yeah, exactly.
Houdini chooses truth.
Doyle chooses a love of the whimsy.
Doyle chooses a veiled threat. Use gaslighting. It's super effective.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle has a friend or something that works at the Scientific American, and he convinces them, or they do it on their own, I'm not totally sure. They offer a reward of, one source said $2,500, another source said $5,000. Either way, that's either $44,000 or $88,000
Okay.
to any medium who could produce a physical manifestation of spirit communications under intense test conditions.
Okay.
So like they need to produce a sound, or it was famous, or it was popular around this time for mediums to produce ectoplasm. Yeah. There's a lot about the ectoplasm that I won't necessarily get into.
That sounds like Patreon content for sure.
Yeah.
Also, every story you share, I'm like, God, before 1970, you could literally do anything you want
anything.
with like $60,000. Like that wasn't enough to get people to lose their mind. One annual salary by today's standards.
People were like, I'll do it!
Exactly. I will abandon everything to prove ectoplasm is real. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The long story short of the ectoplasm is that it's said that only like really strong mediums can produce it, and it's said to kind of be the barrier between worlds, and so it'll like kind of show up sometimes.
Okay.
Around this time is when gynecology was really becoming, and women were typically the ones producing ectoplasm.
Guesses. If you'd given me 100 guesses, I don't know if I would have gotten to gynecology.
Anyway, they're probably hiding stuff in places and then producing it when it's convenient for them in the seance.
And no one's weird about where it's coming from?
No one really knows that there is a place for women to be hiding
They're
that
like,
kind of
my
thing.
hands are sticky!
They're like, see, there's nothing in my belly button. Nowhere else anything could
Check
be.
my boobs, bet you won't. Anyways, ectoplasm.
Yes. Okay. So that's one of the physical manifestations they can produce.
Okay.
And then there needs to be a jury of their chosen people to be at the seance.
Pick the jury? Okay.
No, of the Scientific American.
okay.
Yeah. This jury I think it's around 5 people, include psychologists, physicists, and mathematicians from Harvard and MIT and other top institutions. It was considered the acid test of spiritualism. One of the people is William McDougall. He's the chairman of the Harvard Psychology Department and the president of the American Society for Cyclical Research, which is still around today. Daniel Frost Comstock, who's a respected physicist and engineer and professor at MIT. He is the one that introduced Technicolor to film.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Walter Franklin.
Now in
Prince.
Technicolor.
Now
That's
in
in Atlantic
Technicolor.
City.
Atlantic City. My wife can call your dead mother. Come now. Okay, so Walter Franklin Prince is a PhD from Yale. He explored a number of purportedly supernatural events, always able to offer natural explanations.
Good.
Another one is Hereward Carrington. He's a writer and also kind of magician who specialized in exposing fakes. And also Houdini.
Houdini's on this committee too?
Yes.
Okay, so the committee is full of people who are actively, professionally not believing in this. Okay.
Yes.
All right, I'm here for now. All right.
Together, they eventually exposed many fraudulent spiritualists, but they had a hard time for a while convincing any mediums to sign up.
Oh, yeah, I could.
Yeah.
Sign up. Let us ruin your entire profession.
And one of the people who was trying to get mediums to sign up was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And I guess Houdini at some point described it as like embarrassing for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle because he couldn't get anyone to try and compete.
This is so sad for my former friend and now nemesis.
So they finally get someone to compete. Her name is Marjorie Crandon.
Okay.
Her real name is not Marjorie, it's Mina. They called her Marjorie to protect her identity.
Okay.
She is known as the Witch of... Oh, shit, what's it
I
called?
hope it's like the witch of like Louisville, Kentucky. I hope it's like
No,
a weird spot.
it's Boston.
Oh, okay.
The Witch... it was the name of the street that she lived on. It starts
Okay.
with an L. I want to say it was like Lime Street or something. She is an upper-class Boston medium. In her history, she is the wife of a prominent Harvard-trained gynecologist. That has nothing to do with what I said earlier about gynecology.
Okay.
Anyway, Dr. Crandon is quite a bit older than Mina Crandon and was initially the one to take an interest in spiritualism and quickly became obsessed, saying, quote, "I couldn't understand it. It did not fit into any pattern I had previously known about science."
She's a learned woman, but now she's also a medium herself.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Mina Crandon initially disparaged her husband's interest, joking that as a gynecologist, he, quote, naturally, he was interested in exploring the netherworld. That's
so funny.
Hilarious.
Shirt.
But she also said, like, a seance sounds like fun.
Sure.
So
I think that's you and I's opinion about this
right?
100%.
I was like, yeah, I'd go.
Candles in a room, fun. Okay.
Yeah. So it's possible her marriage was troubled around this time. And so she began showing an interest in this because her husband, who is quite a bit older than her, was, I guess, going through kind of a depressive episode, was intensely hardworking, but also obsessed with spiritualism. And so she was like...
So it's a way for them to get closer together?
And so she was like, I'll join.
God, this story has some turns to
I
it.
know! Okay, so Mina went to a seance, and the medium, who was a local minister, claimed to contact the spirit of Mina's deceased brother, Walter, who had died in a tragic railroad accident when he was young, like in his early 20s, I think. The minister told her that, quote, she had rare powers and would soon know of it. And soon all would know of it. Not long after this, the Crandons hosted a party with an unusual idea. It was to find a ghost in their home.
Okay.
Mrs. Crandon found it absurd.
Next party thing.
Yeah, and said, quote, they were all so solemn about it that I couldn't help laughing. So the participants kind of did a seance. They all linked hands in a circle around a table. And then the table started to vibrate, eventually crashing to the floor. To figure out who the medium was, they all left one at a time. And then when Mina left, the table stopped vibrating. And so they're like, that's the one. And so Dr. Crandon's, at this point, is like trying to convince Mina to really work on her medium abilities and strengthen them. So the Crandons continue their experiments. Everyone who attended said that remarkable things happened there. They would hear rapping noises and movements on the table or around the table. Mina appeared to be possessed by the spirit of her brother Walter, who spoke through her in a voice that was clearly not her own. Walter was apparently very funny, lively, delightful, and engagingly coarse and profane.
And let me guess, her husband's depression cured right on up too, right?
I don't know.
Finally, my wife gets it.
Walter. Yeah. So one of the things with mediums is a lot of them will have like a spirit that they identify with.
Okay.
That helps them kind of get through to the other side. So it's often like
a Voyager.
No, like in this case, it's her brother. So
Who
it would
like
be
help bring her to the other side.
Yes, that will help like kind of like that spirit might help get other spirits to like the person on the living side.
Okay.
So Walter seems to be that for her. It said that her performance, if a deception, suggested a magician's talent rivaling Houdini.
So no magic at all. Gotcha.
As she grew in fame, members of Harvard's community, because her husband is a Harvard grad, tried to debunk her, and while several suspected fraud, quote, spirit humbug, none could explain what they experienced. Mina performed in Paris and London. She even performed in front of more investigators there. She would like make a table rise and float, do all of her normal stuff. The Crandons became close with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who swore by...
The author of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, who swore by, quote, the truth and range of her powers.
Okay.
James Malcolm Bird, the Scientific American editor, saw Mina in Boston, struck by her sincerity, elegance, and a wicked sense of humor. In the seances, he saw flashes of light, raps, whistles, cool breezes. Bird was the one who invited Mina to enter the magazine's contest. Mina Crandon performed in front of several members of the jury, Comstock, McDougall, and Carrington, so almost all of them, all of whom came in skeptics, and some remained skeptics, but none could find evidence for her to be a fraud. Prince also became one of these, so that's 4 of the 5.
Okay.
All appeared to endorse her to win
Except
the money.
Houdini.
Yes.
Okay.
So Bird wrote in the Scientific American, quote, the initial probability of genuineness is much greater than any previous case which the committee has handled. There's a headline in the New York Times saying Marjorie passes all psychic tests. There's a headline in the Boston Herald saying 4 of 5 men chosen to bestow award sure she is 100% genuine. This made Houdini...
4 or 5 dentists support dentine gum.
This made Houdini fucking pissed.
He's like, you guys don't even know. You guys don't even know.
And
you
Houdini...
get slack in your shoulders.
You can
You can make a float. Like, I'm 100% on Houdini's side,
Yeah.
and this man is so angry at the world, he's losing it a little.
No,
At least in my
I would
mind.
be too.
Yeah.
If I was like, it's not magic, it's all trick, and everyone's like, you're magic, bro.
4 men and 0 out of 1 magicians believe she's right.
So he makes his way as quickly as he can to Boston, and he tells Bird, you guys cannot award this prize until I see her talents for myself.
Nice.
Yes. And so they're like, fine. This made Dr. Crandon mad, Mina's husband. And he wrote to Doyle saying, quote, my deep regret is that this low-minded Jew had any claim on the word American.
Oh, so just deeply anti-Semite, xenophobic.
Racist, just like...
Yikes.
And keep in mind,
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah, this entire time, while Houdini is not from the U.S., he loves the United States.
He's probably a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, and he never really says, I'm from Hungary. He says, I'm American.
Right.
Always, because he loves America. And so this guy, to say this about him
He's
is
intentionally
like...
slander. Like,
Yes.
it's an intentional attack.
Yeah, is intentionally like, he's not even American.
Okay.
Yeah. So Miss Crandon, on the other hand, is proud to receive him. Houdini has been famous since she was young. And so she's like... excited, kind of, I think,
Right.
to see him. She found him polite, curious, dignified, and even enchanting.
It's reminded me of like the X Factor or American Idol
Yeah.
when people go in and I was like, I listened to you as a kid, Katy Perry, and
they're
they're
like,
like,
okay.
here I am.
Just hands. Okay, so Mina did the standard performance for him. He demanded to be seated, I think, directly to her left. He wanted to be as close to her as possible to be able to feel if she was like moving around once the
Sure.
lights were off.
So she is still turning the lights off.
Most seances will.
Okay.
Yes. So the table suddenly fell over. There's a bell box that seemed to ring of its own accord, a moving cabinet, a Victrola which slowed and stopped on its own. Afterwards, when he's being taken back to the hotel with some of the other people of the jury, he's asked about the performance, and he replied, all fraud, every bit of it. But he didn't like want to expose her right away. He wanted
Right.
to like really gather information. So
Right.
I didn't write this down because I got stressed at the end. But about a month later, he had a box specifically designed for her. They called it the Maggie box, I think.
Okay.
Because he was convinced she's sitting in the seance room and somehow they like hold hands. And so it would be harder for her to like get her hand free to do things.
Right.
He's convinced that she's doing things with her feet kind
Right,
of around
foot
the
lever,
room
yeah.
or like trying to or figuring out a way to kind of like let go of someone's hands without them noticing.
Right.
Something like that. So he creates a box where her feet are trapped in the box. It's just like her hands outside and her head. So she can still hold hands, but she can't like really do anything.
Spooky.
Yeah. So anyway, regardless of this, Houdini and Miss Crandon remained on excellent terms. Houdini was reportedly charmed by her beauty. There's a photograph taken which Miss Crandon asked to keep private where they look very affectionate towards each other.
Oh.
Houdini is leaning...
Okay, so they have a relationship.
Wait.
I love the 1920s.
Houdini is leaning in very close, and Mina looks to be turning towards him to like be expecting a kiss or something. They're smiling at each other affectionately while Houdini's holding one of her hands.
Okay.
Houdini was typically very formal with women, so this was not
Right.
like usual for him. After observing her very closely on several occasions over the course of a couple months, the first seance is the only one that happened at her house. The
Okay.
remainder happened like at a hotel
Elsewhere,
or in
sure.
other places. Houdini began to figure out and specify exactly how she did some of her most impressive effects. Miss Crandon has produced, quote, the slickest ruse I have ever detected, and it has converted all skeptics.
Pull them receipts, Houdini. Let's hear this.
It has taken my 30 years of experience to detect her in her various moves. In November of 1924, that same year, he wrote a very long pamphlet with drawings showing how Mina was able to create the effect of her seances. A lot of the seances done in the dark, so Mina was able to maneuver her body in such a way to create many of the effects, ringing the bell box with her leg. And he said, quote, she is unusually strong and has an athletic body, so she can press her wrists so firmly into the arms of her chair that she can move her body and sway it at will, kind of without people around her detecting her. So she has like the arms of her chair. She's pressing down into it while still holding hands and still able to like kind of like move things around.
Impressive for someone who's like not a full-time like illusionist like Houdini is to be able to just kind of know how to do this kind
like
of
figure
stuff.
that shit out. Yeah. So he was
She's
able.
a natural.
She's a natural. Yeah. So he was able to replicate many, but not all of her effects. Mina's defenders were unconvinced and accused Houdini of making up his mind before going to the seances. Doyle denounced Houdini as prejudiced and dishonest, and this was the final straw in their friendship. This is really what
liar
broke
in the
it.
press.
Yes. February 12th of 1925, so beginning of the next year, Scientific American published their official verdict that Houdini was correct. Prince and McDougal caught on to Houdini's descriptions and agreed with him that she was tricking everyone. Carrington was the only dissenter and remained convinced that something genuine happened here. It was later revealed that Mina and Carrington had an affair.
There it is. Because she's naturally athletic.
Bird, who is like
He's the publisher, right? Yeah.
Also claimed to have an affair with her, but Mina never...
Sorry. You can't use the word claim like that without it being hilarious.
I know. But while Mina acknowledged the affair that she had with Carrington, she never confirmed this affair and also called him repulsive and disgusting.
So she was like, oh, no. No. I mean, I held his hand once during a seance, but no.
No. Yeah. So Prince and McDougal also claimed that she had also attempted to seduce him. And Houdini had also later said that she was like pretty obviously trying to like seduce him as well.
He was like, haha, jokes was on her. I don't like women.
And Bess is like, bro.
She's like, touch my breast. He's like, no.
Stop asking me to do that.
Your wrists are strong, and that is kind of interesting to me, but like, I don't want this.
Weird, yeah. Okay, this was not the end of her career, though.
Good.
Many still believed in her powers. Houdini was still unable to debunk some of her feats, and he acknowledged that, saying, quote, "The lady is subtle." Life magazine said...
In some areas, at least.
Yes. Life magazine said that she was, quote, "almost as hard to bury as the League of Nations."
Did it, though. We pulled it off.
I love that quote.
That's so great.
I know. So as investigations in her act continued over the years, her credibility started to break down. The American Society of Cyclical Research, I think, did like a weeks long kind of investigation into her, into like their own facilities, and it really kind of broke down, and she kind of started acting like, you know, at the beginning when the trumpet medium was like, I'm dead! Yeah, so...
You killed my room and now it's on fire!
She kind of had some reactions like that where she was like, it was kind of like an act of desperation.
Jig is up, yeah.
Yeah, so in the night...
Although in the name of getting closer to her husband, at least initially.
Yeah,
And this is
and
why
then
I will
she
never get married.
also found some attractive men along the way.
And some of them found her attractive too. She found some unattractive ones as well. Sounds like she found some real Uggs.
Yeah, true. In the 1930s, Bird even confessed that he had caught her in fraud, saying something like, I don't think I saved this quote, but he said something like, if left to choose between a blank seance and fraud, Mina would choose fraud.
So as in like, Bird, things are coming out. Bird's like, I also had an affair with her. Mina's like, no. And Bird was like, I knew she was lying the whole time.
That just proves she's a liar.
Men are men regardless of the year, the social situation, their own status. Men are the only denominator in every single story. The least surprising behavior comes out of them.
Okay, so one of her feats was having like a hand kind of appear, and this is supposed to be the hand of Walter, and he leaves a fingerprint in some wax on the table, and that's like one of the things that like they could never really figure out. They did figure out that the hand would not appear unless Dr. Crandon was at the seance with her, so it was pretty clear that he was doing it.
He's in on it. Okay.
Yes, he was in on it, and the fingerprint that was left in the wax matched the fingerprint of her dentist.
Has anyone seen Walter and Dr. Crandon in the same room at the same time? All I'm trying to say.
At some point, it said that Mina even solicited help from Houdini to produce some of her later effects.
She's like, hey, you get it.
You get it.
But like, I'm a magician. You're a magician. He's like, I'm not a. She's like, I know, but like,
how can I do this?
Exactly.
How can I pull ectoplasm from my nether?
How can I explore the nether regions and then you explore my nether regions? Was Houdini attractive?
I can show you a
I'm
picture
gonna
in a
Google
second.
him. Oh, do you have one?
I have a couple. So that's him with his mom. This is him in the water torture cell.
Nice.
That Chinese one.
He's kind of ripped. Has a good torso to him.
I know. This is him and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
God, it's like they look super regular and human, but they're like
They look
underwear's
very
a little
different.
long.
Yeah.
There's like collar's like a little too big. It's just
It's very 20s. This is Mina and Houdini. This was like the advertisement.
honestly,
I
they
think.
make a great couple. I ship
right,
them.
right. Oh, and
then
this
all the links. Oh my god.
this is the automatic writing that she did.
Oh, with a cross at the top.
yes,
God.
all written in.
It just feels like, and there's a lot of underlining going on.
Yeah, I think it was on several pieces of paper, and I think it says something like, "Oh my dear son, like of course I want to talk to you," or something like that.
Okay, so the most generic thing a mother could possibly
Yeah, exactly.
say. Okay, so this is the one then with the glass and then, okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't actually envision his feet sticking out. That's kind of funny.
Right?
Okay.
Right. Okay. Those will all be posted on our Instagram for you.
Boom,
And now
boom.
we're going to talk about
Wait.
Houdini's.
We had that wasn't it?
We have one last thing.
Oh, okay.
Houdini's death.
Oh, okay, but you said it was kind of fun, and the look you're giving me, I'm excited about it.
Yes. It's kind of funny.
Was it too much wine and meat, like
How do you
Sylvester
think
Graham?
he died?
I think he's doing like a really regular trick, and no one notices that he's actually struggling and he passes away. That would be if I had to give an honest answer. Otherwise, like
a pretty
hit
fair
by
guess.
a car.
Multiple
Our
times.
first car accident victim.
The 1950s because they're trying to kill him. Yeah. Okay. Jocelyn Gordon Whitehead. This is at. It was never clear if this was a woman or a man. I would assume
With
a
a
man.
name like Jocelyn.
I would assume a woman, but some of
Yeah.
the things that happens, it makes me think man.
Women can drive.
No, that's not
okay.
what I'm talking about.
Sorry, the long pause after no was like, no, women can drive.
Women can
Mike. I
drive.
have
That's not
actively
what I'm
seen
talking
you
about.
drive.
It. Okay. So Houdini is doing a show in Montreal in October of 1926. He's at the Princess Theater. He's in his dressing room before the show. Jocelyn Gordon Whitehead is in the dressing room with him for whatever reason, and he asks Houdini if he believes in the miracles of the Bible and whether or not it was true that punches in the stomach did not hurt him.
Oh.
And Houdini said that his
Hate
stomach.
that line of questions.
Houdini said that his stomach could endure a lot. He used to do a trick where you could punch his stomach and it wouldn't affect him because he was like bracing, right? Without warning, Whitehead suddenly delivers some very hammer-like blows to his stomach and like under the belt.
Ooh,
And
so
Houd-
he's not bracing or anything.
No, and Houdini had to stop him, and he had to tell Whitehead that he did not have the opportunity to prepare himself, and so that
Right.
was like not super chill. Houdini performed through intense pain and eventually went to a doctor who diagnosed him with acute appendicitis, and he was advised to immediately go into surgery, but the show must go on,
Shut
babes. So he declined and went on with the show and continued performing. His last performance was at the Garrick Theater in Detroit on October 24th of 1926. He had a fever of 104 degrees.
Oh, he's boiling that water.
He reportedly passed out mid-show due to the pain and was awakened, and he continued and finished the show.
What?
After that, he was hospitalized in Detroit, and he died from peritonitis, which I
From
guess
bleeding inside.
Yeah, which is part of appendicitis, I guess. And he died on October 31st at the age of 52.
Do they go arrest Jocelyn for assault?
I don't know.
Okay.
So this next part is the part that I didn't get a chance to like put into note format.
I can see it
It's
in
like
a different text.
Yeah. I'm just gonna read this as it is. This is from Wild About Houdini. It's this guy that's putting together a like full on what do you call it? When it's like listed out date by date and it like
Like a chronological timeline.
chronology of Houdini's like whole life, and he's also
Okay.
like written a couple books. He does a lot of like really
So
interesting
he's
stuff.
wild about Houdini.
Yeah, you could say. So he says, after Houdini's sudden death in October of 1926, Sir Arthur wrote Bess a heartfelt letter of condolence ending with, I am sure that, with strength of character and possibly his desire to make reparation, he will come back.
Okay.
Okay.
It's at least he's not like, hey, don't worry, I've already talked to him.
Yeah.
But he's like, hey, all the best. I was right. All the best.
All the best. Go to a seance. I have a really great medium.
All the best. Mina's actually already talked to him. It's nuts.
Crazy. Yeah. So as thanks, or maybe not as thanks, I don't know. Bess had, prior to dying, Houdini had been buying some of the artwork that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's father had produced that he had found at an auction.
Okay.
And it was like a friend thing. Like he found this, and his plan, I think, was always to send it to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and being like, I found this stuff of your father's. I bet like you would want it. So Bess sends him a portfolio of the artwork that Houdini had acquired at an auction. Doyle wrote her in return. The book arrived and filled me with surprise. It really seems like a series of miracles. First, that it should exist still, then that it should cross the Atlantic, and finally that it should come back home. I accept it as a peace offering from your husband and thank him as well as you. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle died on July 7th of 1930. He never wavered from his belief that his former friend was, quote, the greatest physical medium of modern times.
That's such a wild thing to die on. Like
Yes.
a crazy hill to die on.
My favorite thing is this ending. So Houdini himself debunked medium. This is from a different source. Houdini himself debunked mediums and proved most were frauds. He and his wife made a deal that before either of them died, whoever was to die first was to come to the one that was living to show that spirits were real. And so every year on the anniversary of his death on Halloween, Bess hosted a seance for I think like 10 years before someone else took it over. And Houdini had given her a code, and I believe it was a song or something, so that she would know it was him. And he never...
He was so for sure in his belief. He was like, if we're wrong, we will come back and tell each other we're wrong, and we'll use this quote. That's a strong marriage. I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Also, the Houdini thing and the pictures, it reminds me of one of my a story I heard. So Elton John and Freddie Mercury were friends way in the early days when obviously Freddie Mercury was still with us.
Yeah.
And they apparently had like drag or pet names for each other.
I love that.
And Freddie Mercury was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS and knew he was dying and had apparently like planned out a couple gifts. And so the first Christmas after he died,
Oh no.
Elton John opens up this mystery package and it's from his deceased friend. And on the back, it's like, with love, and then the pet name they had for each other. Isn't that so sweet?
That's so heart-wrenching.
Yes.
Oh my god. Anyway.
Because I have no other big life story to tell. I think Houdini is so much cooler
Right?
than I had ever... Like, Houdini feels like he belongs in the same category of things that, like, dinosaurs do.
Yeah.
Which is, like, you get really into him when you're a child.
Yeah.
And then whenever you see him then later on as an adult, you're like, oh, yeah.
that's
Like, I
Houdini.
mean, I get it, but sure.
Yeah.
But no, like, the fact that Houdini... His first half of his career was, you know, illusionist, whatever. And the second half of career was disproving magic and mediums. That's so much funnier and so much more
Hilarious.
interesting. And the fact that he had a lifelong beef and friendship with the author of Sherlock Holmes is this also insane additional detail to all of it.
It's crazy.
Proud American, Mina Hayton, just
True.
Lover of his wife Bess.
I know.
I've said this time and time again. You do such a good job with your research. I will come in and I'll be like, I have 2 surprises. Here's the first one. And you're like, every 5 to 10 minutes, you're like, and then we're going to meet this other character for a second. It's like, what's going on? And I love that so much. Like, there's a certain moment in this podcast where you're explaining to me how he did these tricks. And I was like, yeah, this is like legitimately interesting. As someone said on Patreon, this is legitimately like a delicious wing. Bring it back. But like this, there's so many layers to this. And this is why we do this. I'm going to talk about this the next time we're around people.
The number of times I've literally brought this story up like 3 times in the last 72 hours. I'm like, did you know?
What do you think Houdini and Sherlock Holmes have in common? They hated each other, but also loved each other
a little bit.
and
yeah.
like served on a lot of group projects
I
together.
love the example where he's like, see? It's a trick.
Bravo, magician. Bravo.
Wizardry.
You are dumb. Also, yeah, because I completely forgot that you were like, and then he just says something totally nonsense, meanie, techo, farson.
And you're like,
and I was like,
wait.
the old Hebrew saying?
Which makes it so much more ominous because you know
Yes.
Conan Doyle was like, he'll never get this.
Exactly.
And then it appears on the wall in front of him. He's like, holy shit, it's the hand of God.
He's like, I have fooled you. I have fooled you. Honest to God, well done.
Thank you.
You're a magician.
No, I am not.
You also set the bar quite high for smoke and mirrors. In a lot of ways, like, oh, sure, smoke and mirrors, this makes sense. But also, none of this is what I expected or predicted.
It's smoke and mirrors.
Question mark? Because now I'm like, what's the title of this? Smoke and Mirrors Part 1?
I don't know. I haven't. I didn't. I thought I was like spiritual
Meanie,
rivalry.
Techo Farson.
I think it would be like, or I thought I was thinking like spiritual rivalry or something like that, but I don't know. I'll let you think of it.
I'll work on it. You know this is one of my favorite things
I
to
know.
do, is to
I'm
like
fully
wrestle
aware.
with the title.
Yeah.
I'm going back and forth between like, is a cryptic title like gossip
Yeah.
better, or is like a Free Britney, like it's like a plain, like here it is, you know? Well done.
Thank you.
Done.
All right. Well,
Find us. Hold on.
I think you can do it.
Find us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Well I Laughed. You can reach out to us at welilaughedpod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to interact with us and hear more about our daily lives, you can join our Patreon and then talk with us on Discord. We've had a lot of fun chatting with people.
and there's bonus content on there as
There
well.
is bonus content. I like to think that we are the bonus content, but there's just more stuff to get you through your workday.
True.
And hopefully you laughed because, well,
I laughed.
I laughed. And I think we hit everything that we're
think
supposed to in
so.
our closing.
Okay, bye.